I can confirm it's got me again. So has the visual that was awaiting us here from the great Contrarian. We're back, folks. Um, a triumphant edition of Grin Grappler ahead. They're always celebratory in some form or another. Well, thus far they have been anyway. But this one, I was talking to Oracle a little bit here before the show, and we just kind of going back and forth popping before the show even began about these Sting matches because there is something inherently fun about the Stinger. We have much to talk about, an expert panel as always. Bobby Two Shoes, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing well, man. Very excited for this one. Love Sting. He's wrestling tomorrow night. I don't know if you heard about that. So
I
very
did.
exciting.
It is part of why this is such a unique episode. Is that for most guys, if they were still wrestling, I believe 63, if they were sharing the ring with a Kip Sabian on TBS, we would go, man, I wish they'd just leave the memories alone. Sting has avoided that for the most part. He's had his moments, but this AEW run has been mostly glory and victory laps thus far. So that adds an extra kind of an extra star, so to speak. Oracle, how are you tonight, mate?
I'm fantastic. I was popping huge last night, man. I think I got goosebumps like 6 times.
Real graps.
Popping my fist.
Tremendous. Beautiful. That's what I like to hear. The great Contrarian, Alex, you're back with us. So I see the American Nightmare cap. Very influenced by the wrestler we're talking about tonight, the old code man. But Alex, how are you this evening?
Good. Well, as always, a pleasure to be back. Thank you for having me. I'm always renewed and rejuvenated with my love of the sport of kings when I come back to do one of these. So, but yeah, the next time I'm going to see y'all will be post Mania, so I got to get my bits in while I can. But yeah, here today to talk about Sting. As you can see, the original wrestling buddy, and also I was trying to figure out where this guy came from. He's like a little mini wrestling buddy. I was a kid watching this shit, so I got tons of Sting merchandise because Sting was the man back in the day. And also, I was thinking about it. He's the only wrestler I have seen perform live in 4 different decades. So 90s, 2000s, 10s, and 20s, all 4 times for different companies. So some longevity to old Steve Borden. And we got quite the array of matches to talk about, boys.
It's crazy that, I think we all, as dumb as it is, we all still think of Sting as a one company guy. Even though what you just said, when you said that, I was like, 4 companies. And of course, we did 3 here. We did 2 here, but then we were aware of the 3rd before AEW. But it's that makes a lot of sense. It's fascinating just how long he has been relevant. Because, still, they announced he's come back here last night, and people were excited about it. Sting matters always, then, now, forever, so to speak. One of the things I want to get into tonight is kind of how weird it is that, for me anyway, I almost completely disconnect the different versions of Sting. I only realized I did this when I was watching him in one of the matches here tonight when he's the Crow, but he's really wrestling as Surfer Sting in a lot of ways. And I think that's kind of a result of just how long he's been doing this thing at the highest level. So let's kind of start as we usually do with our own fandoms. In fact, before we do that, actually, Oracle, I'd like to give you a chance. I know last time you missed out. Technical difficulties brought us down. Would you like to?
I'll be my back.
There is, yes, those technical difficulties indeed.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen, folks. But I've had my laptop on. The last Grin Grappler I had it. Didn't use it for like 2 days, and then opened it, and that was a problem.
I was referencing those technical difficulties, but I just want to quickly give you a chance to. Last time we had a chance to kind of put our thoughts on Paul White in a bow there to wrap up Grin Grappler. I wanted to give you a chance to do the same before we get too in deep on the Stinger. So, Oracle, if you were here last time and I asked, your closing thoughts on the Big Show, Paul White, what would you have said?
I would have said, hopefully, I hang in here because I'm. I think I just froze for a minute there, but I wasn't a big fan of his when I was a kid. But when he came back with the Floyd stuff and afterwards, I really started to enjoy him a lot. I like the Taker feud in 08 as well. He was just a smart wrestler, kind of understood his limitations, would still bust out awesome bumps and cool shit for for a really long time. Even with the fucking Braun feud that they in what was it, 2017? So I mean, he was for the better part of a decade, he was killing it, and really he was consistently strong as a TV wrestler for a while there. He never had anything that was blow away great on TV, but he would always have like a fun squash or was look really good in a tag as a hot tag guy. He figured it out and became a really, really good worker, I think. And it's funny watching his stuff in order in WCW in the late 90s. He was super athletic, and I honestly think he was a good promo by like early 97. I like all of Giant's promos like by like late 96, early 97. I think he's a good promo then. So I that's that's just based off of going back and looking on that stuff. He struggled some in the early 2000s, but great worker.
There you go, folks. You want to see more about our in-depth Paul White discussion last month's Grin Grappler. I want to give Oracle a chance to kind of close the chapter there. Now let's look towards the Stinger. This is a full year for us here on the Grin Grappler. We start with Samoa Joe. We're back in March. And as always, we'll kick off with our own, look at our own fandoms when it comes to Sting. Alex, I'll go to you here first. Your wrestling fandom and how it is intertwined with Sting, as you kind of go into America. I'd imagine he's been present throughout a lot of it. So make that up best you can.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was like the only guy in WCW I remember first caring about, like when I was a little kid. Like Sting figures. Would try to integrate the Sting Galoob, with my WWF Hasbros, and it was always difficult because I don't know if you remember the Galoobs were like mini LJNs. They were just like locked in a pose, so there wasn't really articulation. You couldn't really do much with them. But Sting was good because he had this pose where you could do the Stinger Splash pretty well. Man, that Galoob Sting is a Hall of Fame figure. But he was the guy in WCW I always liked. That wrestling buddy I had at the beginning had some 3.5 to 4-star classics with that guy back in the day in the living room, man. And that's the main thing I remember. Like, I don't even remember Ric Flair before he showed up in the WWF, but I remember like whenever Sting was on, would watch WCW. Like I would watch all WWF, but like all I cared about with WCW was Sting. And then I remember watching the Fall Brawl pay-per-view where fake Sting debuted. I was like, that's not Sting. And then, Sting then becoming a recluse. And I mean, Bob was born in 2007, so he's not going to remember any of this stuff. But like, man, following that Sting NWO stuff as a little kid from week to week was pretty heavy shit. And it was like that was the only storyline as a little kid I would choose Nitro over Raw to watch, like to see what Sting was going to do. I remember the Clash of Champions where he showed up with the Vulture and had like that little boy doing poetry and shit. And then I didn't watch the Starrcade. That'll eventually inevitably come up. But the one WCW show I went to as a kid, I remember I got a Sting toy and like I just wanted to see Sting. And then I was already kind of sold on TNA when he rolled back in there, but we'll get to that here in the third act. But he, at least for a moment in time, there was a seal of approval that came along with him. Right. And I mean, yeah, it was when they made him available in the video games, I was so excited. And there was nothing you couldn't like about Sting, especially as a little kid, like Jack dude who paints his face and screams and like jumps around. And then that guy becomes this mysterious character. And I don't think for that time of swelled interest in professional wrestling, late 90s, Sting gets enough credit because he was right there at the top with everybody else as far as like a face to a company.
Agreed.
And then I did go to the Night of Champions where he wrestled Seth because my thought was like, this really could be it. And LOL, it's wrestling, so it never is. But so there was that and his hilarious WWE run. And then I guess the last time I saw him was at Forbidden Door when he no-sold the Young Bucks, which was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And he's a star, and he carries a star power with him everywhere he goes. And if you've seen Sting live before, whether it was Wrestling Flair at Clash of the Champions or on Dynamite that you went to, like, he means something. Like now there are some negatives that come along with Sting that I think we'll get to later, because he is an interesting character in that way that there are some like major glaring issues, but he's Sting. And for me, I view him as big of a star as anyone that there's been in my lifetime of wrestling.
Tremendous. I definitely think we're going to cross some of those bridges. So there's going to be some, but I do also think we're regularly going to just have that phrase of it's Sting, right? Like you said it a few times now. I've said it already a couple of times. Like at some point, a guy is so unanimously beloved that you can't just throw your hands up like Sting, man. What do you want from me? Bobby, what about you, mate? Where your fandom with the Stinger?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that because, obviously I didn't watch WCW, and I don't think I was watching TNA anymore by the time he kind of got there on a full-time basis. So it almost certainly was from Showdown's Legends of Wrestling, because that was the first one of those games he was in. Would use him quite a bit. I kind of remember the one WCW game on PS1 using him quite a bit because he looked different, but I was 5 and I didn't really know anything about him. But yeah, just kind of learning through the game, and then the short little things they'd put on WWE TV, these moments in time or whatever, and then EWR would use him in that quite a bit, and just kind of gradually found out more about him. And, got to the point where it's like, oh, he's finally going to come to WWE to face Triple H at WrestleMania, or face Undertaker at WrestleMania, and ends up being Triple H instead. And it's like, all right, well, this is never going to happen. And then he finally shows up, and I was there to see it. It was very cool. End of a great match. And then that's like his one good moment in WWE, which was a bummer. But
there's two, but I'll get to that.
Yeah. But yeah, man, and then, once the network came around and all that, just kind of gradually got to watch more and more of him, and he rules. Just an all-timer.
Wait, did you say you were at 31?
No, the Survivor Series.
Yeah, the Angle.
He showed up.
Yeah. Duh. Yeah. Oh, okay. Right on.
Bob actually was on the Authorities team for that match. A lot of people miss that. Working under a hood, as we've said here before. Now, nonetheless, there's actually a lot of overlap there with Bobby and I. Because I think it's easy to forget how, at one point in TNA, while Sting's intentions are always the best, it did feel like he became such a crutch that it was hard not to somewhat resent the way they would use him. Later on, we're going to get into a great Bound for Glory moment. They then repeated him winning at Bound for Glory for 2 more years after that in their own, he is our Undertaker play, which was an interesting choice in the late 2000s. And I think that, that kind of, I was never a big fan at that point of my fandom. And then once the network, like Bobby said, I obviously became a WCW sicko, so to speak, then you really fall in love with Sting, because he's more than just a great wrestler, a great character. He really was a symbol for that promotion, right? And he was this sort of, we're going to get into a match that really encapsulates this, but it's he really was this idea that as long as he was on the show, there would be something worth watching. Now, that wasn't true often, frankly, in the late 90s. It just really wasn't. But the crowd always viewed him that way, which is almost more important than the reality in a lot of ways, right? He was this sort of, in the angle of the NWO, he was the protector of the promotion. In a lot of ways, I think the audience viewed him that way. And again, there's a match that really captures that idea. But yeah, I think if you're someone who kind of, thumbs through the WCW stuff the way that some of us on this screen do, you really do fall in love with Sting because of what he represented at that time. And then that kind of came full circle for me as a fan, getting the Winter is Coming moment a couple of years ago and what he's done in AEW, where he's, in a lot of ways, I think, spiritually picked up where he left off on the Turner Network, right? In a strange way, there have been some AEW shows that were not all that fun, and then Sting came out and it was oh, finally some real graps has broken out here. It's happened, man, and he's in his 60s, it's incredible. So very, very special. I'll end this segment the way we started. It's Sting. What is there to say? But we'll try our best nonetheless. For anyone wondering, because I did see some questions, our acts here are broken up. We have Surfer, we have Crow, and then we have TNA, which isn't he does the Crow paint, but he's really like a combination of Stings in a lot of ways in the way that he works. And he would cut promos all the time and stuff in TNA. WWE is not an act because we like to enjoy ourselves, and AEW is not an act because we've covered it. Like almost all of it has been covered on the Late Night Grin platform. So there's not a lot for three of us to talk about, and I don't think Alex would like to or cares to really get into too much detail. So it's a thing we're aware of. We did not ignore it, but we've covered it in a lot of ways. So those are our acts. Let's
You did a good job too of including. You also get Wolfpack Sting, Tomato Face Sting.
We do, which allowed Oracle to tweet the theme today, which is always a worthwhile play. Let's get rolling here. Act 1. We begin at Clash of Champions 17. At this point, Sting is already, he's already a star. This is a couple of years removed from the Flair match, and of course, all that went down with Flair leaving the promotion. And this is a show that is often pointed to through the lens of like WCW rebuilding some. This is the same show where Ricky Steamboat comes in to team with Dustin opposite Arn and Larry, which is one of Oracle Line's favorites. I know that. And it also features this very sprint we're going to get into here as he challenges Rick Rude. Sorry, he defends the US title against Rick Rude. There's a pre-match angle involving Luger that sets up this deal where Oracle, we were talking a little bit before and you were very fired up. So best you can paint this picture because it's quite the deal.
Okay, so in late 91, Sting gets these sort of series of mystery boxes that is sort of brought to him over the course of late 91. I believe one is Cactus Jack, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Which, of course, leads to their Submit or Surrender match on TV in 91, which is excellent. So this is the final box, okay, at the Clash, and it's revealed. And it comes out in this big, giant chariot, as JR calls it. So Medusa comes out, very sexually and gyrating and such, and the the silence and like crowd reaction is incredible for it. And at one point, like Medusa's like rubbing Sting's chest, and Sting goes, "Where are we going? What are we doing?"
Yes.
And so all of a sudden, like you hear like a roar from the crowd, and Luger comes in from behind and clips Sting on his bad knee. And if you know Sting's history, at the Clash of Champions in February of '90, he had his knee tore up and got decimated by the Horsemen.
Is that when he
go
jumped
and
in the
leave
cage and it just like blew up his knee?
Yeah.
Yep. And then had to leave for a while before he was, finally beat Flair at the Bash that summer. But so it's a callback to the injury. So Sting gets carted out and his knee's terrible and they don't know, and he gets brought into an ambulance. And so throughout the show, they take him to the hospital. They're in Savannah, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have this great bit throughout the show where JR gets a phone and it's mic'd up to the live crowd. So JR gets on the phone and he's like trying to reach Eric Bischoff. Okay, so
Yes.
Bischoff's like their like road reporter who's like with Sting to like make sure the Stinger's okay, And they have like this map, of like Savannah
The map
and
is
like,
incredible.
hospital. And JR has, of course, classic way, struggles to get a hold of Eric at first. We're trying to get a hold of him. And Bischoff's like, well, the orderly just came out and gave me a thumbs up. I don't know what that means. Just doing this incredible stuff. And like, of course, like I said, it's scattered throughout the show. So,
Indeed, scared throughout the show.
Dangerous.
The Oracle
Rude
goes
come
to
out
return in a moment.
promo.
Yes.
Am I back yet? Okay. So,
Yes.
looks like the match is off. Paulie Dangerously and Rick Rude cut a promo. And Dangerously's like, well, it says here in the contract that Sting has to defend the U.S. title tonight, and if he doesn't, he will have to forfeit the title. So they're like frantically trying.
Frantic they are. They're frantic, folks. They're absolutely frantic.
Yeah.
Technical
Frantic.
difficulties.
Frantic, just like I am. Yeah. Sorry, folks.
Yes.
Laptops are very expensive. I can't afford one right now.
Keep going.
But anyways, so they so they're trying to reach Sting or whatever, or Bischoff, they call him back, and Bischoff's like, Sting, you're gonna have to forfeit your title. And Sting goes, what? And you hear it over the phone, and he goes, I'm not doing that. So he commandeers a fucking ambulance. Drives back to the arena. And so Rude and Paulie are out in the ring, and they go, if Sting doesn't get to the ring now at the count of 10, he will have to forfeit. So the ambulance pulls up, and Dangerously is like, stalling a little bit on the mic, which is brilliant. To give him time to get out of the ambulance, and Sting goes to the wrong door. They follow.
Awesome.
There's a great bit where Jerry goes, "Oh no, I went to the wrong door." He goes in, and the baby faces are like guiding Sting through, and like the cameras follow him from behind, and it's an amazing scene. And all of a sudden, damn, and it's incredible. And Sting gets up on the ramp, and the fucking crowd is losing their minds.
Yep.
And like Rude meets him on the ramp, and they have this fisticuffs that is like absolutely fucking enthralling, dude. It's amazing. This is one of the best angles they ever did. So Sting and Rude are like, I'm just gonna go ahead and just start jumping into the match.
Go for it.
So, they're fighting on that awesome old school WCW ramp. Rude's bumping all over the place, getting gorilla push slammed. God, what a sprint this is, man! And like, you get back in the ring, and Sting's on fire, and then he's got this offense going, and he knocks Rude into the ropes, and Rude at first kind of it's really set up to where he like kind of accidentally falls into his knee at first, and then Sting's of course in pain and all this, and JR's call is incredible here, and the fans are shrieking and cheering for him, and Sting's selling is amazing here at the knee. He keeps fighting back. He keeps like finding ways to just survive there, for the few minutes this match lasts. And then Rude purposely clips his knee, and then gets the roll up on the tights and whatnot to win the U.S. title, and just an incredible performance. The setup for it is amazing. One of the best sprints in WCW history. One of the best angles they ever did. And of course, the post-match call by JR is amazing. Oh, what a tragedy!
He's incredible throughout here, man.
Like favoring his knee.
This is peak.
So well done because it gets the belt on Rude, right? And makes him kind of the top heel in the company. As he kind of slips in when Luger leaves, but it sets up Super Brawl with Luger and Sting, and Sting gets the belt back, and Rude is the U.S. champ. It's just one of the best angles they ever did, and I don't even think it's talked about enough. Just an incredible piece of it, man. This whole thing was like thrilling. I love this whole deal. Like, it takes time to kind of like find the bits. That's the annoying part. With Peacock, is it doesn't set up the little moments you can't find it. But like if you take the little bit of extra time to find the promos and the JR phone, calling in the hospital, to Bischoff. It's worth it, man. This was incredible. This is incredible stuff.
It rules. Rude was, I think he's one of the most underrated brawlers in angles and matches. Sometimes he would be too good at brawls and would just kick the shit out of baby faces, which I don't think was necessarily the correct play. He did it with, I remember one time him and Bulldog do an angle and he beats the hell out of Bulldog. They're just brawling, Yeah. But here he's just in the right space mentally where it's like, I'll sell for you. But he's still throwing bombs. It's an incredible deal. Bobby, I assume this is the first time you've seen this, right?
It is. And I saw the match time first, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how they're going to do that. Yeah, it ruled. Oracle really hit all the high spots. JR was incredible here. Something that really stood out, and this is kind of something that happens every time we watch WCW, is like, here's a guy that's going to be wrestling tomorrow night. This was 32 years ago. Like, and it's called by a guy who's going to be on the call tomorrow night. Heyman's there. We saw him last night. Like, just the longevity of these guys is wild.
You're absolutely correct, but I will say it only makes the contrast of Rude more striking because on the show, one of the matches we do here starts with the tribute to Rude after he passed, and it's like,
that's right,
it's wild, man.
April '99 one,
that. But you're absolutely correct, but that always strikes. There's, Shivani and JR doing Sting matches over 30 years ago is like.
I'm going to jump in and say this. There was a fascinating thread of how one match kind of led to the other. That there was like, I didn't realize that when we did this, but like a lot of these matches, like DDP did the commentary for that.
Yeah,
and it was just kind of neat how that worked out.
Absolutely, Alex. What'd you make of our first match here?
I'm sorry that I wasn't even paying attention to the date on that. I assume we're talking about the 426 one.
Yeah.
Because Joe doesn't really apply to your country, but Rick Rude died on the same day as Columbine, and so like that didn't even register in my mind. That's fucking insane. Which of course was an earth-shattering tragedy at the time. Now it's like a weekly occurrence. Anyway, back to the lecture at hand. Rick Rude. I remember one time IQ wrestler, who's a great follow if you don't follow him on Twitter for both MMA and wrestling. He said that Rick Rude was the best wrestler in the world in 1994. And I remember thinking like, and I don't know if I'd still agree with that, but it is equally mind-blowing every time to go back and watch post WWF Rick Rude in this run, because he is a different wrestler altogether than he was in the WWF. And he was great in the WWF. And I think he is like the example that people never really point to of he knew what he needed to do for the WWF to, one, make Vince happy, and then two, to make those crowds react. But he knew immediately when he got to like, the Southern wrestling, I need to turn it up and make myself more real for these people to like buy into what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he did beat the shit out of a lot of jobbers. And yeah, he did beat the shit out of Davey Boy. If Davey Boy had any idea where he was, I'm sure he would have been really mad about it. But here, he's just a madman. And you see the first thing that happens, is Sting demonstrates incredible babyface fire with those punches. But he military presses Rude onto the ramp, and not even like we'd seen one of the later matches, kind of the settle down. He just hoofs him over, and you see the accident that took Rude out, and it's sad because it's one of those things of like, and he does like a full rotation on a back body drop, and this lands on his ass. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And the bump that took him out, was just wrong place, wrong time. It wasn't anything crazy or like particularly violent. And it's a bummer because you wonder, and trust me, I'm going to get to Sting, but you just kind of wonder what like Rude could have done, because then he just becomes the insurance policy, does that shit in ECW, and he just kind of bounces around. That was kind of the talk, was he was maybe going to ramp up and do a comeback in 99, 2000. But this is just an example of that. Like, if all you've seen is like what I'd like to have right now, Rick Rude in the WWF, I can't implore you enough to seek out like his WCW work from this time, because it's night and day. But Sting, man, like, he was over like a superstar, not over like the Georgia Championship, just like, we like this guy because the Jack Briscoe, that type of thing. Like, people bought him as a star on level with Hulk Hogan. You can see like kids near the top of the building jumping on their seats when he's working his comeback and stuff. It's not just kind of like, oh yay, it's that next level thing. And it's not just, oh, we want to see Ronnie Garvin punch this guy. It's like, oh my God, this superstar's here. And this is a tremendous outing for him. Like I said, it's Sting. There's been times, if not years on end, where it seems as though he's rested on his laurels as far as like what he can do in the ring. But you watch something like this, and the first match we're doing out of the gate here is one of those that makes you say, well, hold on. When people say Sting was never that good or something, it's like, no, look at the way he sells in this match. Look at his performance in this. This is like a fantastic outing for him, and just tremendous chemistry with him and Rude. And yeah, especially for the time, the runtime of it, you expect it to be like just a quick angle, like, and it eventually it's that kind of spread out of the show. And then my next note was, this Heyman guy may be onto something, because his promo after the matches, his promo was fantastic, but being pure Heyman, he still had to work in some kind of insider thing at the end where he's like, I think he said, "We'll see you there, Jim Herd," or something. I was just like, oh. But
shoot with you, brother.
Yeah, the Clash of the Champions, you can just start from the beginning on those, and you're going to find hidden gems and diamonds along the way. But something like this, it's a tremendous place for us to start. And the Surfer Sting look was just once in a generation type thing. And he did all the different colors, but the pink tights for some reason popped, and I thought looked great with that bleach blonde hair.
Yeah, this is these first two matches. This is my favorite Sting by far. And I'm aware of how insane that is, considering that as we've referenced a few times here, he is still going 30 plus years later. But there's an energy here that is really just peak professional wrestling babyface performance. It's like the height of it. Place is rocking throughout. We've covered every kind of angle of this, but yeah, Rude really at the peak of his powers in terms of a balance between physically and being switched on and kind of being really motivated. This is the start of his run. He debuted at Havoc, so we're really early into his run here. Really early.
He has that. He's not as inflated as WWF, and he got the crew cut. Yeah. But he still has the mustache. I mean, he's still the women's delight. Mm-hmm. They're all busting out of their pants when he comes through the curtain. But at the same time, he has this look of he looks like a badass, like he could beat the shit out of you too. It's a tremendous mix of the two.
There's a lot of different, theories is too strong a word, but I think Ben set it up here. Someone commented, I think it was Ben, said when he showed up, he had that line, kind of an infamous line about Sting that he looked bigger on TV. And there are definitely some guys have kind of suggested that Rude got to WCW and looked around and was like, well, hold on, these dudes ain't that big. I don't need to be out there working like I used to work with, Hogan necessarily. And you see that he definitely projects in WCW more of what his real life reputation was as a real badass, right? That's always been the way he was talked about by his peers. In WCW, that kind of translates to the performance itself. So, yeah, he's tremendous. Obviously, Sting is fabulous here. That is a great sprint. We're going to follow it with what I think really may be the finest Sting match of all. Starrcade 92, King of Cable final. Sting meets probably his greatest foe, in my view, anyway, Vader. This is a rematch at Great American Bash. Vader just absolutely destroys Sting, takes the title.
So
in
awesome.
The meantime, yes, tremendous. In the meantime, he drops the belt to Ron Simmons. They meet here in the King of Cable final, which is really the Starrcade main event. I mean, it's not technically, but it's the Starrcade main event. And this is just the perfection, the perfect take on the big man. Little man's too strong, but against Vader, almost anyone's a little man. But the underdog hero fighting the big monster. It's it's wrestling's one of wrestling's great archetypes, absolutely perfected. Bobby, firstly, had you seen this before? And secondly, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I saw this last summer for the first time, and the immediate takeaway was that's one of the best matches I've ever seen, and that was my takeaway today too. Just incredible stuff. They do so much in the, I think, 15 minutes or whatever they have, and just beautiful, man. You nailed it. Sting works how he has to in this match. Just kind of outsmarts Vader. The finish is incredible. Vader getting busted open rules. Just great stuff. Probably my favorite match of these that we watched.
Sting does some crazy shit too. He does a rolling thunder kick at one point. You see that, Alex?
He does the capo kick, and then he goes right into a fucking German with a bridge on the big man.
Yes, he does. There's a couple crazy Germans that show up in this fucking deal, right? Kurt nearly kills Sting with one later in this show. But
man, yeah, we're gonna get to that match, brother.
Oh, we are. But Sting has a couple real strong ones. But yeah, this is quite the deal. Oracle, what did you make of Sting and Vader here on Revisit?
This was incredible, man. There's so many things to say about this. The back and forth momentum in the first half of the match is amazing.
Yep.
When Sting pulls up,
he's great. It's amazing. His connection seems fine, and then you throw it to him, and it all falls apart. It's just.
Okay.
He's back.
Am I back yet?
Yes, the back and forth
momentum. Right one. Okay, yes. So this match ruled. When Sting rolled.
Right, hold on.
Kick, I lost my shit.
Alex, take us away here. We'll circle back to Oracle.
Poor Oracle, look at there he is. But okay, Vader, You got the do rag first of all, and then the his all timer WCW theme. The capo kick and the German suplex, man, Sting's on fire in this opening stretch here, and there is a wild pace for big old Leon and also Sting, who, you know, I would question his cardio at the time just based on the build that he had, and they eventually do like slow it down for a minute.
Yeah.
You can see Vader like huffing and puffing on the outside, like, let's take it down. But you get I have here written down, there's a part where Sting hits Vader with some kind of move and maybe a suplex or something. And Vader gets up before him, and Jesse on commentary goes, well, that just has to be depressing as hell when you give someone a move and they're up before you.
Jesse's so based on this, man.
And he gets off on saying rope-a-dope so many times when they're talking about, well, that's how Ali beat Foreman and Zaire. And Tony's just like, all right, come on, let's move it along here. But Sting looks awesome in this, because there's even the point where Vader, the Adas, as he throws them, but Sting's like calling him on. Yeah, he like it's a badass outing for Sting here, and he hits that splash from the top, and it's just all impact, man. Like, you even see like Vader do the hool and like the sweat mist out and shit, and yeah. I think the common logic or common wisdom or what have you, people, if you polled people, you know, at WrestleCon and next weekend and said, who's Sting's like best opponent? They're probably going to say Flair, but dude, for me, 10 times out of 10, give me his matches with Vader over that. They worked so well together. And even when you watch like the matches, like, is it Slamboree 94 that Vader like did a shoot where he thought it was just like the shits. And I'm like, that match is fine. It's weird because the crowd hates Sting because it's in Philly, but like they do some awesome stuff in it, and they were just you know, that Legos. They just click together so well with their two styles. So a fun one here. I kind of want to go back and watch the whole show because this has that Great Muta and Chono match on it that is like a good match, but the crowd does not care at all. And is it a Battle Bowl also, or a Lethal Lottery?
Yeah.
Those are, I don't know why we don't do those anymore. It's the whole, I mean, no one buys pay-per-views for matches anymore. So just advertise the pay-per-view. Like, what's going to happen? You know, say it. Yeah, fantastic stuff. Just cream of the crop.
I also think this is, you know, my favorite Sting rivalry because it's the one where he's allowed to, like, you know, kind of spread his wings as a worker, right? And the Flair thing, like, he's slotted in the role by Flair, and they have their formula, and God bless them, it works, but it's a formula. Here you see him do different stuff, and it's interesting. Oracle, let's take another roll of the dice here. You were talking about getting very fired up. Go on, mate, go for it.
Yeah, this match is great, man. I used to debate about which match was better of the three. The Bash or the strap match. There was actually a really like divisive sort of argument between which of the three was the best when we were doing the Smarks Choice poll in 2009. That was kind of like the big debate, which of the big three Vader Sting matches was better. I honestly still think I like the strap match better, but this is still a classic. You know, it helps that the strap match has so much blood, but this one just, you know, the capo kick, the DDT off the top rope was fucking insane, dude.
That's crazy. Yeah.
This crowd sucked. Like, they got up for this match, but this crowd sucks this whole show, though, don't they?
Yeah, this is by far the loudest they get, by far.
I also forget that, like, the lighting sort of changes in WCW when Bill Watts is in charge because it's all dim lit and shit, like it's fucking 1984 Mid-South.
Of course.
But yeah, I totally agree and loved Alex pointing out Jesse's obsession with rope-a-dope and bringing up the fucking Ali Foreman fight. That whole strike exchange though is incredible shit.
Yeah,
like
it is awesome.
When wrestling pulls off like an awesome strike exchange like that, it's always like awesome. Brett and Austin do a much more simpler version of that at Survivor Series '96. But just an awesome match. The finish is honestly the thing I remember the most about it because I remember I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna catch and slam him and win.
Right.
Like, because I have not seen this match for probably 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a really long time, but it's still a classic, still holds up. Probably even better than I remember it being. because I saw this trap match within the last 4 or 5 years and still liked it a whole lot. But this fucking ruled, man.
Tremendous.
And the part, I don't know, was it Jesse or JR who says it, or was it a fan whose voice got caught on the mic when Vader was throwing those punches and he was punching the paint off, and somebody goes, he's punching the paint off his face.
Yeah, I'm not
Was
sure.
that a fan who said that, or was that Jesse?
I can't recall.
It was JR, it wasn't Shivani. What do you think about that, Ross?
Ross.
JR and Jesse is an incredible team because they both like clearly despise each other at every turn, and it creates this like bizarre, like JR refused to sell for Jesse, which only makes Ventura more mad. Like he'll do his bits and his shtick, and JR just like, anyway, played football with it, he's like that's his deal. I love the tactical element of this match where Sting starts off and he's like kind of measured and he gets overpowered a couple times. And then he has, at one point, he just like makes a quick move for him and sprints at him. Big Leon just fucking clubs him to the mat. And Sting sort of looks at him like, that didn't work. And ultimately he concludes.
Sting's straight kicks to Vader's face fucking ruled too.
Oh, it's awesome.
Dude, they did some shit in that match that was like, holy fuck.
It pops me that ultimately Sting's conclusion is I just need to like soak up enough of these blows that he's exhausted. And that's where you get the rope-a-dope thing. Like we've all talked about how Jesse says it because you can tell the reason it's funny is because it feels like Ventura seems to believe it like legitimizes his job, him referencing this heavyweight title classic. But it is the vibe they're going for though, right? Like when as you say, it's when he's calling him on and he's got his hands up and he's taking these shots, it's like, man, it's an extraordinary there's like an atmosphere to this, it feels really raw.
The post-match interview too, and Sting's like, yeah, and I got my ass beat, but it was worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It feels like he's in danger, genuinely in danger, and that's like the best thing you could say about a monster, right?
One other thing, Vader coming down the ramp and going with his fucking do-rag. It's time to go to war.
Oh yeah,
ruled. That fucking ruled.
We also get
Harley got a bump in too when Sting did the bunch. Bump me.
Has to have been in his contract, 1 bump per match, right? Minimum. Also, you have, Sting's favorite cutoff spot, his go-to. Like, I think he's even done it, maybe done it in AEW. He loves the cutoff where he goes to the Stinger splash on the rail, the guardrail. The guy moves and he takes it. That thing looks like hell. He takes it every single time. It's
that's his Brett sternum first in the turnbuckle.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you see? If I've ever watched this show cover to cover, it's been years, but I was kind of just fast forwarding and Sting, they both wrestled earlier in the night. And I stopped on Sting's match and it's just like 3/4 of the ring. And I see Sting in the ring with Liger and I'm like, holy shit. And then it shows Sting's tag partner's Doc, Steve Williams. I was like, holy fuck. And then I was like, who's Liger teaming with? And then the camera pans out and Eric Watts is on the apron. It's like, oh, god damn it.
Yeah, because he has that match, this, and then he's in the Battle Royal at the end, right? The Battle Bowl. He's in season. Yeah. They turn around and go in that after this, man. It's fucking insane. Quite the deal. An incredible. One of my favorite WCW matches ever, honestly. Perhaps my favorite Sting match of all. So, incredible stuff. Let's round out Act 1 with some other recommendations. We've already mentioned the strap match. We've already mentioned the Great American Bash, which Vader. Those are both musts. While I don't think any of us on the screen are like the height of fans in terms of the Flair rivalry, still very much worth watching whenever those guys look up. Great atmosphere for all those matches.
The Clash match is fantastic. And Joe, you made the good point of like when those Flair matches all have merit to them, but it feels like do this, brother. Now you come at me. Now do this. Like, and it's all that. Whereas like these Sting Vader matches, like, and someone called it the cactus matches. They feel just like crazy. And it's like, and young, energetic, hyped up, roided up Sting is just going for it. And it's just like, yes, this is what it's meant to be right here.
Yeah, Beach Blast 92 is the famous cactus kind of shootout match.
The last time I watched, I preferred Submit or Surrender. Was it you who said you preferred Beach Blast, Joe?
It's not so much that I prefer it. It's just the one I've seen more, Like, I think they're very similar in quality, but I've seen, as Bob snickered there, because he knows I've seen Beach Blast 92 more than, like, any other wrestling show ever. So,
Have y'all ever seen any of the Blade Runner squash matches?
I think I have, no.
If you, like, they put some on, one of their, Warrior Sting has them on their DVD set, and I think if you just watch kind of like the Mid-South from around that time, Sting was always a cut cat, but he was fucking enormous in that tag team. And, Hellwig was always gigantic, but they're just like, they have no idea what they're doing. And they're like, you just go out there and beat these guys. And they look just oiled, jacked up, and they throw guys around. And I think basically Bill Watts he showed him one Road Warriors match and said, try to do that. And Blade Runners will come back up here in the second act, but the novelty of those, don't waste time seeking them out. But if you come across one on YouTube or something, go for it. In that vein of like teams and shit, you got to call out Sting. Surfer Sting was a part of several of the War Games matches that are recognized as the best War Games matches ever. The Sting Squadron against Dangerous Alliance, the Horsemen against Pillman, Sting, and
Steiners,
and then also Sting and Luger against the Steiners at Super Brawls, like all-time WCW. There's a match from the Tokyo Dome where Sting tags with the Great Muta and wrestles the Steiners. That is a good one.
Yep, 90. Was that 94? No,
it was 91 or 92. Yeah,
you're right. You're right.
I also like the one with the Clash where they do the angle with the plastic bag, where it's him and Flair, but Sting and Flair versus Muta and Dick Slater, I believe, right? Steps in for Terry on that show.
That's like a clash. That's one of the clashes my dad remembers watching live when he was a kid, and Dad always brings it up. Remember when Terry Funk put that plastic bag over?
That's an incredible piece of business. The match is great, and the angle is obviously is infamous, iconic, and infamous all at once. There's a whole lot going on there in history, but yeah, lots of great stuff. Any other matches we should share out from Act 1, I think, boys?
Sting versus Muta. They had a match at Starrcade and also one at Great American Bash that was really solid. And then he had a pay-per-view match with Regal when he was starting to grow out the hair. And so when
was that from? What show was that?
It would have had to have been 96.
96, right? Yeah. 96.
It was the show headlined by Luger and Giant, right? Oracle, you watched this recently, I think. What was this?
Great American Bash 96. It's very good.
Bash 96. There you go.
There's also the Fall Brawl 94 one when it comes down to Sting and Vader and they have to knock each other down. The last 10 minutes, that's fucking spectacular. And the crowd eats it up like it's Sting Vader from 2 years before, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And in the vein, we brought this up already because we talked about the Flair matches, but like the pinnacle moment of Surfer Sting is Great American Bash 90, Red, White, and Blue Sting, where he beats Flair. So there's a lot there. Someone brought up the Jake match. He also had a fair share of like wrestle crap moments during the Surfer Sting era, where the Jake match, he had that god awful match with Inoki in the Tokyo Dome, and I forget who he wrestled, some kickboxer, and they tried to do some like shoot style match. That one Observer's worst match of the year. So peaks and valleys for Steve Borden throughout this era.
I will say about the Havoc match with Jake, he does have that awesome spot at the finish where he swings around the pole. That fucking ruled.
That is cool. Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting question. Is Sting's first peak 1990 through 1994? Seems 95 and 96 is the dark era. I have to be honest. I really enjoy him in those 2 years.
I think the Ming matches are fun. I mean, they're not great. They're solid.
I love his promos on Hogan. You know when he's clearly resentful of what Hulk is doing to WCW. And then when he turns, he's able to go full with it. Like Oracle, I think you gave it best promo on Historical Oracle. There's that one he cuts at Disney that's terrific.
He eviscerates him at that one at Disney. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that I was about to say people view that as the dark era, and Terry got there and said, well, that's not going to work for me. So.
It's definitely, though, in terms of relevance, I get why those years are where he kind of falls because of what you just referenced there. But I enjoy him. But, I mean, the Crow run is where I probably enjoy his work the least, bell to bell. Mm-hmm. But he's so over in that run, and it's like such a transformative act and gimmick for a moment there that you can't really, it feels silly almost nitpicking. But with that in mind, let's just move in that direction. Act 2. Regardless of everything that, could be said about the matches and, of course, Starrcade 97, I think it is unanimously and universally agreed upon that the angle itself and like what the idea itself of Sting watching over this promotion that he was so integral in building and having so much resentment for the fact that people would dare question his motivation and becoming this character and saving WCW is one of the coolest wrestling ideas, concepts, whatever, ever. Like, it's without question, like the one I always will say, and Oracle and I talk about every time we do a show together, even if it's never do a WCW, Uncensored 97. If you've never seen the post-match angle for Uncensored 97, once upon a time when I was over on Fightful, we used to do these monthly watch-alongs. And I picked Uncensored 97 because I knew that was on the end, right? So we were kind of chilling, and like then I knew it was coming, and I just watched our whole chat, who was not all of them were familiar with it, be like, "Oh my god, that's the best angle I've seen!" Like it was that great, you know. And
let me jump in and complain about my age real quick.
Yes.
Uncensored 1997 took place at the North Charleston Coliseum in Charleston, South Carolina. My dad and my two oldest brothers were at that show live.
Yeah.
And I'm so mad at myself for not being 5 or 6 years older. Because I was 4 years old and did not give two shits about that. You know, I was a little kid and didn't. I didn't start watching wrestling until I was 7, and this is when my jealousy comes in. Secondhand story here, but I'm gonna tell it. I've told it here like 5 times on this platform, but I always love to tell it. So Dylan says when Sting comes down from the rafters. Okay, so my brother Drew, may he rest in peace, was not a huge wrestling fan, but he liked Hogan when he was a kid. And when Hogan turned 96, he tore his Hulk Hogan poster off the wall. Okay, so they're at Uncensored 97. Okay, Sting comes down from the rafters. When he comes down and he attacks the Outsiders with a bat, my brother Drew starts high-fiving and hugging strangers. And Dylan says he does like a panorama look around, and everybody's like high-fiving and hugging each other. A Sting is in the ring, like just throwing dudes with his bat. And he said it's the loudest pop and loudest reaction and like most amazing reaction he's ever been live in like a wrestling building ever before.
Because that was when Sting finally made his allegiance
when
clear.
It's finally when he made his choice.
Dennis Rodman is there too.
He was, you know.
And Terry, what's with the bat, dude?
Yeah.
What's the deal with the bat?
Terry has that great.
Honestly, all of the reactions are great.
Giving him a massage.
But the pop when he actually hits Hogan is like unbelievable. Like it is one of the most incredible things. So yeah, I say all this to say, you know, regardless of what, you know, like the matches, whatever, who cares, man? This was an incredible angle. We understand what happened when it came to land it. We understand. We don't need to really go that too much. I know Bob has very strong opinions on it. But before we get into the first match of Act 2, would anyone like to discuss Starrcade 97, or are we safe to proceed without ruining our night with such a conversation? What do we think, boys?
I mean, you know, there's not much we're going to say that hasn't already been said. I think I'll reserve most of my thoughts on that for something that comes up later, because as y'all know, I'd messaged the group requesting a specific match because I feel it kind of vindicates some of that. But I don't think you were being hyperbolic enough, Joe. Had they stuck the landing, I would say this is still the best angle in the history of professional wrestling, because like you take someone, it's so simple. He's this colorful, verbose, very, you know, loquacious guy. He gets his heart broken. No one, like everyone he ever loved and trusted turns on him. And so he becomes a mute, and he's black and white. And, you know, but he doesn't leave because he needs to make sure this thing he's invested all his time and, you know, his heart in stays and doesn't die. And, you know, CM Punk once put it perfectly, was that Sting didn't talk for a year, and WCW did the biggest event in their entire like run. Like, and that should speak to how like incredible that angle was. And it really was. And, you know, the uncensored thing, or it wasn't just Starrcade. Hogan and those guys knew what they were doing when they let Lex beat Hogan beforehand. So like there's some things sprinkled along the way that kind of the writing was on the wall, but had they stuck the landing on this, it could have been incredible. And you know what's funny is like TNA tried to replicate this exact same angle with Aces and Eights where AJ was Sting, and and they still fucked that up. Like they knew what WCW did wrong, and they still fucked it up trying to replicate it. But back to the point though, like people, I don't think a lot of, and I joke about young fans and like, you know, there's people that watch today, and it used to be better, brother, and all that shit. And I think there is the overwhelming majority of the current fan base cannot fathom really what happened at Starrcade because wrestling's not that big. And what I mean by that is like, got to be awesome if it did happen. But let's say WrestleMania next week was on track to be the biggest show in history, and day of the show, Roman goes, "Nope, not happening." Like I don't think everyone's so used to everyone being professional and like no one doing that shit anymore that it's kind of unfathomable. And like Hulk Hogan has obviously done worse things in his life, but that from like a pro wrestling perspective, that has to be like, that's not even funny. Like, you know, we talk about the shit Hogan would do or that doesn't work for me, brother, where it was kind of funny. And that's just, you know what you're doing, and you're killing your company. And then also on top of that, all the stuff that doesn't have to do with Sting, that just ridiculous use of Bret Hart in that situation and whatnot. It's
you know what else he did though? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You were watching then, but he hurt himself because in 98, 99, he just feels less relevant. That's just for someone who watched.
You have to, you know, once the heel, you have to get to a point where you have to just beat the heel. You know, you can't go on forever like that. You know, it's like
they also, you know, they definitely got some borrowed time because no one could have foreseen Bill Goldberg coming into the fray. After
yes, they got very lucky with that.
Not to mention the Flair return. You know, Goldberg was the number one thing, but Flair return helped too.
Get some
fire me.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm already fired.
Flair is incredible in that like 6-month stretch. When he comes back to the Hogan match, when they inexplicably do a double turn, he's incredible.
And I know this is off topic a little bit, but credit to Bischoff for actually getting his comeuppance after the night after Starrcade 90, but then kind of basically in 99. I know he kind of came back a little bit, but he basically let the character die.
That's the end of the arc for sure. The Starrcade 97 entrance is like the coolest thing WCW ever produced, and it makes it even more fucking annoying that what follows it. Like the entrance is perfection, you know, like incredible stuff. But
I guess my closing thought on that would be that this is the biggest match you ever promoted, and you set up a situation where you allowed this thing to completely fall apart, and that's kind of, those are the things you view and go, okay, you deserve to fail or something like that, because it's not boxing, it's not MMA. You control what happens, so it's just like. That's the situation you're in. And someone asked if I saw the NWO A&E documentary. No, because I watched the biography they did on Warrior, and I was like, I'm out. Like I watched the Luger one because obviously we were waiting for that, but like the whitewashing they did on the Warrior one, and then it's just, I've seen clips about it though.
If I was to tell you that the documentary ends with Eric Bischoff starting a barbecue while he talks about someone whose first crush was him, does that, because like that happens. And also at one point they have like a tracking shot where Bish is like walking his dog talking graps, and it's just it's like just different, like it ends with him and he's got like 4 undone buttons on his shirt and he's like putting a burger on the fucking bar and he's like, so anyway, let me tell you about this time, you know.
I had a beer with him.
Yeah. It is genuinely, I think you'd pop for Hogan's performance because you know, again, this is an extreme example of it. I think a lot of us laugh like he's whole shit. You know, he claims on that documentary that Sting forgot to kick out and everything with Bret Hart was an ad lib. Like, you may need to watch this. Like, he said, I didn't even know Bret was going to be out there, brother. You know, like,
oh my God.
You may need to see this, Alex, quite frankly. Whether you want to or not, you may. There's also one moment in which Hogan's
on the heel on the Hollywood Hogan heel act or whatever, you know, the one on Peacock.
Evil.
Yeah, Evil. He goes, you know, things were going well, brother, and then, you know, other guys, you know, and it was like clips of Kevin Nash and like everything. They, you know, they started to make things about themselves, you know.
They're on some clip they used in some TNA DVD around the Immortal angle. I saw this clip recently where Hogan goes, you know, me and Eric Bischoff created a company in 1995, and it was, and we beat Vince McMahon 2 years in a row, dude.
They're
you think-
talking. Good.
I was just like last
Yeah.
thing, like, do you think he knows the truth about anything anymore?
No, absolutely not.
I think he's. Yeah, I think he's.
They're
Yeah.
talking about how, like, they Nash often talks about the disconnect with Hogan in those initial NWO promos because he was still doing like the 80s promo style. And like they asked Hogan about it, and he's like, well, none of us got on at the time, And he's like, there were 3 of you, 2 of them were best friends. You're the 3rd man. Who didn't get on? Like who are we talking about here? We. Like, what does that mean? But yeah, incredible. Another episode for another day. Not a Hulk Hogan Grin Grappler, but just an official A&E breakdown. One day, folks. Anyway, let's get to our match here. September 14th, 1998, an iconic episode of Nitro. The Flair return and also the Meng Giant match that we talked about last month, ironically, is on this show. So
I didn't even put the 2 and 2 together, and this is for history's sake. If I remember correctly, this was the last Nitro that beat Raw, ever.
It was the second to last. The one after Havoc 98, because remember Havoc 98 fucked up with Goldberg DDP.
Oh yes,
they beat him, but this was the last one that really fairly kind of, because that one was a little bit different because they showed the pay-per-view, and that I think that it doesn't, but it kind of skews things. This is the last head-to-head that I feel like they truly beat him in.
Yeah. Up against Goldberg here, of course, we did our 12 Bouts of Bill episode. Recent free agent Bill Goldberg. My God, the crowd's reaction to this is insane. Oracle and I, before we went on the air, he was talking about like how the crowd clearly wanted Sting to win and just decided that in the middle, like halfway through the match, was like, fuck it, Sting should win, And Hogan's interference gets such a brutal response because of that. Bobby, 2 of your favorites here. What'd you make of this?
Yeah, this was a blast up until Hogan came out. I was having a really fun time with it. Almost like some parallels, obviously not on the same level, but like Sting kind of worked the same way he did against Vader, where he had to kind of pick his spots and couldn't just go right at him. He tried to go right at him and it didn't really work, so he had to change it up a little bit. And I always love a good tombstone counter. We're just countering into another tombstone.
Crowds.
You're in luck because we have a few more of those.
Yeah.
Bob.
WCW crowds love that spot. That's their favorite spot by far.
But yeah, it's a good match. It's unfortunate that Hogan got involved, but it was fine. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Good TV for sure. Very, very good TV. Oracle, what'd you make this one, mate?
This there were there were some small issues with connectivity and stuff, but Goldberg was still green as grass in terms of putting the match together in a lot of ways. Some one thing outside of the match is a couple of things popped me when Goldberg's entrance started. He almost slipped and busted ass on water when he came out.
Yep.
And then DDP was excellent on commentary here.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was really good.
Yeah.
And
this episode was very
a really good way to hype up DDP Goldberg too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it was the night after. This was the night after Fall Brawl '98. They were already getting on the ground running, and that Halloween Havoc ad. Did you see that? Did you catch that one?
I did.
Oh, that was a fist pump, brother. Man, the first 2 minutes, and then the last 3 minutes of this are incredible.
Yeah, the middle it loses.
Goldberg gets a power slam, and then Sting gets up and hits a fucking Oklahoma Stampede. The crowd is losing their mind, and then Sting gives Goldberg like a standard suplex, and Goldberg no sells. So Sting just says "fuck it,"
just bows.
Was incredible psychology. That ruled.
Yeah, that was
true. Then, it gets kind of clunky there, but all the spots pop, and the crowd is just completely insane.
Yeah.
When Sting makes his comeback and starts getting his shit in, and he hits 2 Stinger splashes, and then Goldberg misses a spear in the corner, the pop for this fucking thing, dude, they are losing their minds. And
these prime Nitro crowds.
That pop when Goldberg is in the Scorpion, you can barely hear the commentary screaming.
Yeah.
They're up there on the stage, and you can't hear them.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible stuff. Hogan fucking he feels so irrelevant here. Comes out and kicks the boot, and the post match kind of pops through Brett with his
Brett comes out on his one good leg, as they said, right?
Of course, Goldberg does spear and jackhammer, which the moves get pops, but the crowd, we have to remember, Carolinas and Virginia, the WCW and the Crockett fellas, they were always like insanely over to like an absurd degree, and that was probably part of it here. Not to mention that Sting was in the Wolfpack, and that was obviously a big deal at the time. But they wanted him to, yeah, they want it's mass destruction. But like they badly wanted him to win here, which was kind of fascinating to watch. I mean, Goldberg wasn't booed or anything, but like it was obvious like who was getting the bigger pops. But this was a blast to watch until the shitty finish. But the post match kind of popped me when Brett came out in like his bum leg and like
fucking
was, like,
just incredible shorts.
Yeah. But because that was that weird period where Brett would like turn one week and then turn the next. Remember he would like turn like 17 times.
They really nailed that Bret Hart thing, huh? Really nailed it.
Yeah. But yeah, this was again, it was clunky in the middle, but you kind of expect that. But like the opening moments and Sting's comeback at the end are like amazing. This was, as somebody described, just an electric TV match and just a perfect encapsulation of the era. And honestly, it's a 3-hour Nitro, so it's kind of, if you sat there and watched all 3 hours, there might be some things that were a slog, I'm sure, but like it's arguably the best Nitro ever, just in terms of like, which is kind of crazy saying because it's so late in '98, right? But like, what an incredible just crowd and atmosphere. I really enjoyed this. It still holds up for me.
Absolutely, Alex. Would you make this one?
Yeah, Devin beat me to. I have an all caps on my notes. Sting with an Oklahoma Stampede.
Yeah,
because I lost my mind for that. Someone asked about peaks earlier. This is definitely the peak of Sting's hair. Beautiful head of hair going on with the man, right? He Sting is obviously like trying to hold this thing together, and it appears as though what he wants to do is kind of like work like a veteran, like the headlocks and like sweeping the legs and shit. And Bill just doesn't allow it. He's just, no, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And there's the tombstone reversal spot, and then there's the Stinger splashes with him luring him to the other side to move out of the way so he rams into the post. Fortunately, Bill didn't KO himself on this one like he's done several times before, but we talked about this on the Goldberg episode. There is just magic to these matches of Bill just like, well, I'm going to do whatever I want. And, these guys having to figure out how to work around that or rein him in. And yeah, got to be the best Wolfpack Sting match because I can't think of any other match he had as Wolfpack Sting where it really mattered because he was only that for not even a year. It's having not known it was that Nitro, and when I fired it up, I was like, oh shit. And of course I had to watch the Flair promo.
Oh yeah.
You are a no good son of a bitch. And the crowd,
he's bleeding. Yeah, he's his own tongue. Fucking lunatic.
Good stuff. As everyone has said, my sister watched this match with me, and she's like, "That was awesome until the finish." I was like, "Well, that's a parable for WCW. That's basically that, especially like Nitro matches." And I don't even know if this was like they would just give shit away like this for free without really advertising it. Like, here you go. And Terry comes down at the end because brother got to keep the shine up and gives. It was so lame too. He could have at least that shit Conan would do in TNA where he put a bar of soap in a sock and hit somebody with it. At least Hogan just kind of kicks him in the back of the head. But fantastic. This next one here we're going to talk about too. There is, as you guys know, one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone says it's just like ECW. No, it's not, because nothing is, and it's just like that when even WWF's finest hours, those white hot WCW crowds, it was just a different thing. It was a different thing,
Nothing like it, man. Nothing like it.
And as we'll see in this next one too, they were also the drunkest crowds ever. But fantastic match. I think it's on both Goldberg and Sting's DVD sets, or at least one of them. So yeah, excellent. I know I'd seen this before, but I'd forgotten how good it was, and an absolute joy.
Yeah, really fun stuff here. Genuinely, like we do this, bits a lot in terms of what could happen now, but I do think there is a very real chance that the Sting's retirement match involves Goldberg in some way. I think that would actually be a pretty natural spot to do something with him. Just to be clear, ideally on the same team so that Sting makes out alive. But,
I just want to bring it up real quick. Made me think. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off there, Joe, but I was just thinking. Alex mentioned the Blade Runners. I think they do the Sting Warrior versus Hogan Brett tag at some point around this same month.
Okay. Yep. I was gonna joke about that when we got to the whatever's happening around this act. And I can't remember if I talked about this before, but Bob, WCW, the ad wizards and brain trusts that they were, did not advertise the reunion of the Blade Runners. They had Sting and the Ultimate Warrior against Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan on Nitro, and they announced it, I think, 2 hours before the match happened. That, to me, take whatever other thing you want from WCW that you'll say is the dumbest thing they did without advertising it. That is it. That match on paper, and yeah, we know Warriors run in WCW was a fucking disaster, but still.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You give that a week build. It's like the Goldberg Hogan thing that they announced on 3 days. It's just what the fuck is wrong with you? And of course, they don't call. Oh God, they don't call them the Blade Runners, but Warrior sees Sting in the ring, and he's like, it's amazing what a little paint can do, and they decide that they're going to team later in the show. It's just an insane promotion and insane people, and Hellwig made probably $2 million for that line.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, but I definitely think that's a case of the match is so nothing that people forget that was the thing they did. Even
oh yeah, it's
oh yeah.
I never knew it happened until the Sting Blu-ray set came out, and it was in the match listing. And I was like, what? Yeah. And then it's 4 minutes long, and I think Savage does a run in or something, and it's okay, that was nothing, but still, you think they would have gotten some mileage out of that?
Yeah.
I don't have it. I think it's on one of the Nitro best of, because there's 3 best of Nitro DVDs, I think, and I think it's on one of them. Well, I think I could be wrong on that though.
Okay, well, it's been a best of Nitro. I think this next one is. I knew this match was good. I remember it being good. I was not prepared for just how great this match was. April 26th, 1999. Sting and DDP in what I think may be the best Nitro match upon rewatching this. I've revisited it twice because I watched this last week and I did it again tonight. I think this might be the best Nitro match ever, legitimately. And I know that seems reactive, but I've really considered that. I fall back quite a bit. Firstly, get away some of the negative parts. This is a very strange setup here, and DDP has just turned, and Flair is. There's a lot going on with Flair. I have a Cuckoo's Nest poster.
Mental asylum in this one. Yeah.
Kevin Nash was doing. He's that was apparently his inspiration, is what's been said, right? Which I don't know if he's seen that film.
I saw bits and pieces of Flair stuff, just kind of going through the show. What's going on there?
They're basically saying he's lost his mind and Roddy Piper is taking control of the company, but the people have often said that's what, because Nash is obviously he doesn't his podcast is a big movie guy.
Yeah,
and some have suggested that's where that's from, but not quite the vibe it gave me. To be honest, very bad. Some of the worst TV they did, and that covers a lot of ground. But yeah, anyway, forget the setup. It gets us here: world title match, Sting and DDP. Oh my God, this crowd! This crowd is outrageous. I mean, we've talked about it. They had great crowds often first time. This is an all-timer. This crowd is popping huge for the smallest momentum shift. It's unbelievable. So much to talk about here.
The first part, moments into the match, Sting does this, and the entire crowd comes up.
It's astonishing. It really is. Alex, we'll start with you. What did you make of this one, DDP and Sting?
Yeah, I stepped aside for a second, so if I repeat anything, I apologize, but I did hear you say, Joe, you believe it's the greatest Nitro match ever, and I'm going to second that because it's Similar to my thing about Rick Rude earlier about I'm kind of blown away every time I revisit it. That's this match. And we know now like DDP's like obsessive style, that Randy Savage, like got to make sure everything's down. And, people would say Sting's ability to follow, but still you can't teach some of the things he does, like the reactions he has here, facial expressions, like his timing on some of this stuff. Even that he was kind of in love with if you didn't watch at the time, I don't know how many people remember, he was in love with that spot where he would get hit and then just kind of teeter-totter and then come down with the headbutt to the dick.
Still does that, by the way.
No, all right. Why
Still
not?
does it.
And it's amazing this match happens when they had already I call the sad stage. When I see that Nitro stage, I'm like, oh, like it's that era of Nitro.
It's awful.
I believe this was in Detroit. Bob
Fargo.
What was it?
Fargo, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Fargo.
Okay. I was thinking of something different, but Bob already mentioned the Showdown Legends of Wrestling video game, and one of the modes on that was you could recreate legendary matches, and this was one of the matches on that game. So there you go. Sting comes out looking like a fucking star. Since this is our last stop in WCW, it's worth saying, even till their dying day, he was the only guy that really had the ability to go out there and people would still like, holy shit, there's a star right there. Even, God bless, Flair in that late run, but like Flair and Hogan no one gave a shit anymore. Meltzer will tell you the house show crowds loved him, but everything I've ever watched, Sting was the only person that could come out and people went, look at that guy. They get the crowd early, and the crowd does not stop like with this match until it's over, until the 3 count. They're hooked on everything that's happening. Paige looks like $1 million just in like the shitty chicken shit heel, the part where he pulls the hair and then immediately gets out of the ring and does like his lap, and Sting has to chase him. And he has some great cutoffs too. He does a tornado DDT at one point, which I was just like, Paige was probably pushing 64 at this point, so that was impressive. Mention the drunk fans. There's some in the background that like one guy's got like the gimmick where you take your shirt and tuck it behind your head so like his guts out, and he's just like high-fiving like with the in coordination with the offense of the wrestlers. And Sting just works an outstanding comeback in this. It starts with when DDP goes for the diamond cutter and Sting just hooks himself on the rope so he doesn't fall down with it. It's just like shit is not hard. It's it's pulling it off this way. But then you guys said it was in Fargo. They somehow hop aboard a charter jet and go to the other side of the world and end up in the Budokan, because we get DDP doing a sit-out power bomb, and not to be undone, Steve Borden breaks out a Gonzo bomb on WCW Nitro in 1999. Just unbelievable. And then after all these kickouts and this back and forth, the simplicity of the finish is beautiful. All DDP has left is the diamond cutter. He hasn't hit it yet. He knows if he does, it's done. And he tries to get it, but Sting hooks himself instinctually in the corner, and then using Paige's momentum to go forward with the diamond cutter, hooks him, drops him with the Scorpion Death Drop. 1, 2, 3. The place goes ballistic. And it is... We talked about Steiner and Goldberg, and, there's some other things we've kind of talked about late WCW, and there's a couple matches I'll talk about here in a minute, but, like, this was, like, rewatching this it really feels like the last time the magic was there, like, WCW still had, like, gas in the tank, and there was, because it's 2 WCW guys, and they just wrestle a WCW-style match, and the crowd is just eating out of the palm of their hand. A just fantastic piece of business. Whatever scale you rank it on, I'm going to tell you it goes to the highest level of that. I love this. And it does have to exist in that vacuum, because sadly they immediately WCW it, because, Sting loses the title before the end of the episode of Nitro. But bell to bell, got to be in Sting, Paige and Sting's top matches.
For sure. I actually would like to know, I'm not sure if either guys talked about this at length, but I'd like to know more about this, because you mentioned, Alex, there's the reputation of DDP is that he would meticulously put things together beforehand. I hate to be this guy, but I noticed he was talking a lot throughout this. Like, I mean enough that I knew what was coming next, as well as Sting did. Like, it was It was very, very noticeable.
When they're just doing those arm ringers, he's like basically, duck two, get it again.
It was
like that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, it doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't meticulously put together beforehand. Maybe it was just because but I guess they wouldn't have had a lot of time, right? Because we know how WCW's run at this point. And the reason I bring this up is not to be like a smart ass about it. The reason I bring it up is because of how fucking great DDP is here. And it's like, it kind of makes you like reassess him in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I often have said about the DDP Goldberg match, like, what if everyone else in WCW, all the other top guys, approached wrestling Goldberg the way DDP did? Like, let's try and have the best match possible. And here, there is such enthusiasm to DDP and such a desperation to have a great match that he legitimately takes Sting back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Schiavone has the call. He says this is like a combination of Sting. And it's because Schiavone realizes while he's watching this that he's wrestling as the Surfer. He's Surfer Sting here, man. Like, paint is one thing. He's wrestling like he was in the first act here. And it's like really, really noticeable. In just so much to like here. Bobby, what did you make of DDP and Sting?
Yeah, it ruled. I don't know that DDP really gets the credit he deserves for like a big match guy, because he's incredible pretty much every time you see him in one of these big spots. And it just, like you said, the crowd, like that first Stinger Splash and Scorpion Deathlock, they just get loud enough that you really can't hear the announcers. And it's incredible, man. And, they're fired up when Sting wins. And naturally, I had to go watch the main event. And it's just like, why did they do that? No one liked that. That's not Sting or DDP's fault, obviously. But, like, probably could have just left that one alone for a little bit. But this match was awesome.
Who, Joe or Oracle might know, who was booking WCW at this time? Because obviously this was before Russo came in.
Still Nash, right?
Yeah, Nash. Yeah, because when you were gone, Alex, I was telling there's the theory that the Flair goes crazy thing is like because Nash is a big Cuckoo's Nest fan, which, as I said earlier, I resent that. I resent that tie.
Yeah.
But
he loves. God bless Nash, but he wants to make sure he knows his movies.
Oh yes.
Hey.
Which this did not achieve. I'm sorry to announce, but nonetheless, Oracle. I know where you're at on this, but tell the people we were talking. This is unbelievable, brother.
This has a case for U.S. Match of the Year in '99 because '99 was not a great year in the ring in the U.S.
Right. What are the other
candidates? And there's better matches in Japan, handful of them.
Yeah.
But this has a case, and I say that because I watch it and I was reading other reviews, and I think it was PWO Lost who said that, and I think I agree with that. And I thought Sting worked really hard in '99, and DDP is fucking great from beginning in '99. This dude has like a bunch of fun TV matches. The Jersey Triad has a bunch of good tag matches. Great act. Like he I don't know, man. He was really like figuring it out. He was really probably an awesome worker by the end of '97. But like there's like that 2 to 3 year period from '97 to '99 where he's like probably like, this will sound crazy, I know, but he's probably like top 50, top 75 in the world, like in the ring. I honestly believe that.
Yeah. Oracle, what? Now I'm curious. I just want to make sure it didn't get glossed over. What are the other candidates for '99 Match of the Year? Like RVD, Jerry Lynn, Shane McMahon, and Test.
One of the Tajiri in matches was super crazy, right? One of those.
Yeah, and Tanaka and Awesome. I mean, they had the same match every time, but yeah.
Yeah. There's really nothing from the Fed that I can think of.
That the first Edge and Christian and Hardy Boys match.
Yes, that one's really good. You know what? I think Rock Mankind I Quit fucking rules, even as fucked up as it is.
Yeah.
But that's probably the list right there. Those handful of matches we just named.
Yeah.
There's a few matches from like WCW around that same time that are really good. Like the Benny and Malenko tags there's some really good shit there. Always got to get that name.
I don't know.
It'll come up again. I know.
I don't know if anyone else would include it, but Taz and Tajiri from Heatwave '99 is fucking awesome.
That match rules. It's a great match.
Yeah, Benny and Brett, the Owen tribute match. The the immediate nerd answer for 99. That's it. Yeah, Blitzkrieg and Juventud from Spring Stampede.
That's true. I mean, there's, but it's even then. I think Sting and DDP is probably better than at least 2 or 3 of those matches we mentioned.
Given the hindsight of time,
right?
I think the only one I like the Living Dangerously or Guilty as Charged. The first RVD Jerry Lynn match more than the hardcore.
Yes, there's one of them that I like and the others I don't, and that we might be on the same page there because I haven't seen that stuff since I watched the ECW set that Death Led Driver put out.
Mm-hmm.
So and of course I haven't gotten there in my Monday Night War watch. So, but I remember liking one of them, but not the others.
And I need to make it clear to our commenters here when I said the nerd answer, I wasn't calling anyone a nerd. I just know that that was that was Meltzer and everyone 99 was Blitzkrieg and Juventud Guerrero, which it's still a great match. Spring Stampede 99 is probably the last great WCW show.
Where DDP initially wins the belt that he loses here in this match, actually.
And Big Kev gives Bill his win back.
There you go. Yeah, when he leapfrogs the spear at one point. But this match is just incredible. Definitely, I think I agree with the sentiment that it's probably the best Nitro match ever. Just the way they put it together. DDP's healing in this is brilliant. Just finding,
he's so good here, man.
Tossing Sting out of the ring, doing a powder, raking the eyes, cheating and finding slick ways to do that, and just finding different ways to do it. Sting avoiding the diamond cutter with the catching himself on the way down ropes was like a huge pop. What an amazing spot. The near falls down the stretch, and Sting every time he'd get up for his offense in the latter half of the match, he'd do and they would just like explode and like
the crowd is incredible.
Just incredible. The Gonzo bomb was nuts, man. I forgot he does that in this fucking match.
Who do you think presents that? Is that Paige is like, Steve, I just got this match between this guy named Misawa and Kawada. You got to see this shit.
And, just spectacular stuff, man. What an amazing match. The crowd is just like you said, it's just incredible. Finish is amazing. What an amazing finish.
What reaction to the finish?
Bobby's right. It's stupid. I mean, we all know it. Why give Sting the belt for a while?
No,
this stupid shit. The ending of the show is so dumb, but just an amazing match, and honestly, one of the best. It even holds up as one of the best, U.S. TV matches in the '90s, and maybe even beyond. Just an absolutely awesome match. One of the best matches of either guy's career for sure.
So, good, Alex.
I was just gonna say, this is like to me on par with like Bret Hart and 1, 2, 3 Kid in terms of like great TV matches from the '90s.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So we all agree this is the last great WCW World Title match, right? We're all on board on that.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what was the last one before this that was as good as this? Because I was thinking about this a lot. Post Hogan coming in, I don't know if there is an answer.
Goldberg DDP?
I don't think it's better than this. I honestly don't, and I love that match. This match is like
complete. I agree. I would say this one's better too.
And that match is killer. I'm wrong. So we've already talked about that match previously, right? But like better than this, I don't think so.
You know what's funny? DDP Goldberg, I think, is better, but the third best one is probably DDP and Sting from March of '98.
Yeah, maybe.
That's also really good and has an awesome finish too.
I'm just trying, I think there's an argument that this is the best WCW World Title match in almost 6 years.
The thing with Hogan in WCW is all bullshit about Hogan aside, when the time came for the big match, he could do it. But there was just this inauthenticity in everything he did in WCW. That even when he was supposed to be like Hollywood Hogan, I don't care, he would make sure just to sandbag any of his title matches. And it's just like, even when he was babyface Hogan, him and Vader should have had like all-time great, big pro wrestling matches, and he just wouldn't do it. So I am Cactus and Vader in '93 wasn't for the belt, was it?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think this was the one when I said 6 years.
Flair and Steamer '94 had great matches.
Yeah, this was the one when I said 6. This one I was thinking of was Flair and Vader from Starrcade '93. I do love the Flair Steamboat match from Stampede '94. To be clear, I like both Hogan Flair 1 and also the cage match at Havoc. I love. So I'm not saying none of these matches. This really feels like I think we're almost understanding. We're saying it's the last great world title match in WCW. It's like, man, this is one of the great WCW world title matches.
I never thought of it.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. And again, I was aware of it. I knew it was really good. Watching it, this last couple of weeks, watching it a couple of times, it's like, wow. And this has got to be DDP's best performance too. I mean, he is unbelievable here as a heel.
I'm telling you, man. Like he's like, I don't know. I want to be careful because I mean it's. DDP has somewhat has limitations in a lot of ways, but like he's really good in '99, man. Like he'll pull out a fun match with like some people that'll surprise you. Like I don't remember it, but I've seen him like him having like a this will sound insane, but having like a 3-minute match with David Flair that's actually not that bad.
Oh my God. It's the highest praise.
Just because he puts it together so well.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in the chat asked about Brett and Benny having a world title match on pay-per-view in '99, and yes, they did. That was from Mayhem. And it is the finish of that match is immortalized in the opening video of Malcolm in the Middle. That's the Brett is putting Benny in the sharpshooter in that. It's fine. That if I remember correctly, Mayhem was one of those shows that was like a one-night tournament under the Russo regime. There was a bunch of like bullshit in it.
Nice moment with winning, but other than that, it's not.
Their best matches, the Nitro matches.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think we're definitely onto something here. Last great one, and the first truly great one since Hogan came to the promotion.
It's great that we didn't even mean to do it that way, but we could only possibly frame it as a Hogan diss. Right, it's the only way to like explain it. Yeah, it's good stuff. Other matches from Act 2, I think it's definitely a slimmer act in comparison to Act 1. I will do it because everyone else had a chance to talk about Benny, so I'll just say there's a match with Benny that's very good. I don't know when it's from, but I'm going to get out of the way.
September.
It's from Kansas City.
Okay,
because it was in the same arena where Owen died, right?
You're thinking of the Brett match, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying Sting and Benny had a good one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's after Sting turns heel and Luger helps him. It's after Fall Brawl '99 where Sting's champ.
I didn't even know about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. I have none others. Do you guys have any others from this act?
Spring Stampede 2000 has a really, really fun Sting and Booker T match.
Pop, there you go.
I think it's maybe 8 minutes, but it's a hoot because you could kind of tell by that point they both were like, the way the match is presented to me is like, well, fuck it. We still need to take pride in what we do here. So
I'm glad someone did.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that match that card also had like 17 matches. So
yeah, it was a tournament. That was another Russo tournament. It really was.
Because it's a deadly game.
Okay, this is a stupid guilty pleasure of mine, but I won't deny it. The Sting Luger Brawl where Luger takes bumps into the Gulf of Mexico is fun.
That was that in South Padre? I think that was somewhere.
Yeah,
Because I know that episode because it's they're like deep in the Ready to Rumble promotion, and Okerlund's interviewing DDP, and DDP's like, I forget what he says, something really fucking stupid, like it's like Fight Club meets Wayne's World or something like that, and he talks about, he's like, we got David Arquette and Scott Conn, we got that sweet little Rose McGowan, and then Mean Gene goes, and don't forget about our good friend Joey Pantoliano. And since we're talking about Sting, I didn't even mean to segue to this. We've all seen Ready to Rumble, right?
Mm-hmm.
The presentation
many times.
Oh, it's a fantastic piece of business. John Cena's film debut.
Roll that ass,
the presentation of Sting in that movie is unreal. So this movie portrays like wrestling as this dumb, predetermined sport, which it is, predetermined show, not even sport. The fans are just idiots, rednecks, people involved with it are fucking alcoholics and losers and all that shit. But Sting's real. Because Sting can control the outcome of what happens here. So, and just that scene where fucking Joey Pantoliano tells him, he's like, I will kill you if you mess this up for me. It's like, this doesn't belong in the same movie where we're just watching with all these poop jokes and whatnot. So if you've never seen Ready to Rumble, Sting has
It was my favorite movie as a child, and I literally watched it probably 30 or 40 times. That's not an exaggeration.
I like really want to be the person that makes it happen that it gets a Blu-ray release, because I take a lot of credit for spearheading a movement to get Batman Mask of the Phantasm on Blu-ray, like just by bullying Warner Brothers archives on social media and shit.
Respect.
And so like I feel like I can also accomplish that for Ready to Rumble. But the one thing is, like, I've always been blown away that movie theaters like the Alamo Drafthouse and stuff have a lot of locations now, and if they reach out to the right people, they can license to show a screening of a movie for one night. I can't believe that none of these people have thought to try to figure that out and coordinate for like a WrestleMania weekend, like of having like a showing. DDP posted something on Twitter like a few months ago about looking into doing a screening of it with the whole cast there, like in Atlanta. And I was just like, dude, I'll sell my Mania ticket and go to that if I have like to choose between the two of them. So,
my God, could you imagine the Contrarian Alex selfies that we'd get from that event? It would be like it would be one of the great Twitter events of all time.
Of course, like Oliver Platt is like a respected actor, so I can't imagine him like coming back.
But
anyways, Sting, yes.
Wakey, hands off Snakey.
How about this one? Go get my beer, you freaking morons.
Do we have any other matches you want to call out? Or
Piss off, 5 minutes are up.
we good on Act 2? It seems like it.
I'm expecting to hear that numerous times at WrestleCon. Piss off, $20 is up. Get out of here.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
Okay, I guess last one for the novelty's sake, because it is all right until the booking kicks in. Him and Brett at Halloween Havoc 98. Halloween Havoc 98 is like the definition of a Peaks and Valleys show, but the triple header on that is obviously Paige and Paige and Goldberg in one of the all-time greats, Warrior and Hogan in one of the worst matches of all time, and then Sting and Bret Hart for the U.S. title. And it has these moments where it's like, man, I wonder what these guys really could have done, like in the right confines. So for the novelty's sake, just throw on Halloween Havoc 98 in the background someplace.
Yeah, same vein for the Flair Sting match from the Final Nitro too, right? Like it's not much to see, but for the novelty, it's worth throwing out there. Okay, Act 3, we head to total non-stop action. Sting was away for a couple of years and then returned and was very much a big factor. When he came on full time, they often say that was a part of getting the Spike deal, right? It was like Sting was kind of legitimized them in some ways. You kind of alluded to earlier, Alex.
Final Resolution 2006 was his. So he had wrestled. I didn't mean to cut you off, Joe, but my blood gets pumping when we talk about Golden Age.
I noticed.
So when TNA first started, he was on 2 or 3 of the weekly pay-per-views. Originally, he did a tag match, I think a singles match with Jarrett. But he came in as a full-time wrestler at Final Resolution 2006, where he and Christian teamed to take on Jeff Jarrett and the alpha male Monty Brown.
God.
Yeah, and then it wasn't long before, I don't know if you remember this, Joe, but like what TNA viewed as their launching pad for Samoa Joe to like the main event level was that Sting chose him as his tag partner to wrestle Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett, and which was a very good match. That Final Resolution one, Samoa Joe and Christopher Daniels had a fucking fantastic match. But
yes, they did.
But that brings us to here.
He does. Bound for Glory 2006. Really the last match in which Jeff Jarrett plays the role that he played for the first 4 years of the promotion, right? Where he's like doing his Ric Flair impression. Title versus career. Sting is in incredible shape, visually at least. Got the old school gear on. A very strong atmosphere for this. Kurt Angle is at ringside as the enforcer, and he'll get more involved in that, certainly. For better or worse, he will get very, very involved. Lots going on here. Bobby, had you seen this before, and what did you make of it?
I had not. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I've heard about it. This is a TNA show where they go on the road for the first time and end up in Detroit the same night as the World Series, which backfires on them pretty big in classic TNA fashion. Yeah, great main event. Title versus career is great stipulation. I actually liked Angle's involvement for the first bit of the match, and then he kind of went overboard with it. But
Kurt went
suplex on the
overboard?
ramp ruled.
Well,
A little bit. Jeff does a really shitty ankle lock for like 90 seconds, glaring at Kurt the whole time.
that was beast. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great, man. And Sting got the win, obviously, and kind of a new era for TNA. They got Sting, they got Angle. Things are looking up.
They were. They were written down before long too.
Yeah.
But in theory, what you said is correct. Yes.
Mhm.
Oracle, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, this is one of the TNA pay-per-views we ordered when I was a kid. I remember being really into the Christian and Rhino feud at the time. This one is interesting because I think Angle hurts the match because he's just like he constantly like. Although the part where he Angle slams Rudy Charles and just decides he's gonna ref the match is incredible.
He yells, "Let's get it on!" like it's Big John McCarthy.
Yeah. And man, props to Rudy Charles. He went up for that Angle slam.
Yeah, he did.
I don't know if he had a choice in it, but he did.
Sting looks in incredible shape. He definitely had ring rust because they obviously talk about how and by the way, the great Don West on commentary, may he rest in peace. They talk about Sting being out for 2 months, not on TV, not wrestling, and there's definitely some rust there, but he looks amazing.
Yeah,
and of course he has the the red and white mixed face paint, which looks good, and crowd's super over for him. Honestly, my favorite part of this whole thing is just the finish. It's just so well done. He just he takes the guitar shot and is just like, nope.
Great reaction for that.
Does the Stinger deal and puts in the death lock, and then it's taps. Jarrett does, and Sting wins it, and then of course they do this 2 more times and almost 3 until they decide to give AJ the win over him at Bound for Glory 09. But this is a fun match. It's just a really satisfying way to end it, at least in terms of this was a long 3-year program that they did in a lot of ways, because I remember when they had him come in late 03, because by that point we were ordering the weekly pay-per-views, and they did the angle in Japan, or no, the angle in Japan was where he attacked Hogan, but
Hogan,
brother.
Yeah, there was they did the tag match, and then they did the title match within the same month. It was November of 03, I think.
Yeah, and then the build to this was Sting had him dead to rights at Hard Justice 2006. That should show I was out where the roof caught on fire, and Christian cost Sting the belt.
Heel, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yep. And then of course this ends up leading to the afterwards, Joe and Angle, and then Sting, Abyss, and Christian Cage in a 3-way program for the title.
Yeah.
One point, I think Abyss wins the belt from a DQ or something.
He does,
dude. Yes. Yeah, that match is like a hoot until the finish, and it completely falls apart because Sting wrestles, and this was a novelty back in those days. He wrestles again with his shirt off, and he takes a choke slam into the thumbtacks, but then does the Sting spot where he stands up and and it's just like, oh my god! And then they go into this really convoluted finish, and it's just like,
it's bad.
Vinny Roo.
whenever I see this time, like this show is really interesting because it feels like they're really on the precipice of something special here. And it is always staggering to me that they just do the whole Joe Angle trilogy in the next 3 months.
Yep.
Like they don't space it. They don't do the first one at Genesis and then like get, way out. It's like Slammiversary or some shit. They just do it. And it's like, well, that's that. Anyway, moving on. Fascinating promotion. I like the first act of this I loved. Where Jeff is like out wrestling Sting because he's rusty and Sting's selling it so great in his face. And Jeff is being a great heel and he's being Jeff Jarrett, which is still effective to this day in the right spot. And then he pushes it too far. He spits at Sting, and Sting just fires out and gives him this awesome powerbomb, like powerbombing through the mat. I was rocking with it. Unfortunately, the Angle stuff drove me fucking nuts, man. Like and he looks ridiculous here too, doesn't he? The way he's dressed. What was going on with? He has that terrible shirt. That looks like a bootleg, but it's his first TNA shirt. He has those hilarious like track bottoms on. He looks so funny. Yeah, he's doing a lot here. Chewing scenery, dare I say. I did appreciate Sting doing a double crossbody spot here in 2006. Pop me. Lots to like. A little too much Kurt Angle for me, but a very, very fun finish. And the crowd's reaction to the guitar spot is like one of the best TNA moments ever. So lots to like. Alex, I sense you're the high man on this. So go ahead, mate. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is, Brett and Austin from WrestleMania 13 or anything like that. But I think the reason I requested this is because it's relevant to the discussion of Sting, because what I said when I requested this is because I feel like this is what Starrcade 97 should have been. And I don't mean move for move, spot for spot, that type of thing, but like the idea of it. So I also think Starrcade 97 would have ruled if Sting just beat the fuck out of Hogan and pinned him in 2 minutes. Like that would have been great. But the idea here of Sting's had some time off so that he kind of gets out wrestled in the beginning and he starts doubting himself and questioning himself. And then, he works his comeback. And if you had to insist on the Brett thing, you could have used it in this manner of like, he's there to prevent something nefarious from happening. And then, Hogan hits Sting with the belt and Sting just fuck you and then kills him. So like, I feel this is good. It's a very important moment in time. And also Sting's attire was supposed to be something representing every stage of his career. So he had the ball bat for the Crow, the robe from the Surfer, and then the Wolfpack pants, and then the new face paint, all that shit. It was a very special night. When you say like on the precipice of something, it's really true. And TNA would go on to do bigger crowds than this in Plymouth, Michigan, at the CompuWare Sports Arena. I think it was about 4,000 people they drew, but like, I think AEW's clouded, rightfully so, because AEW's done some pretty impressive stuff. And like NXT, I think it's clouded a lot of people's understanding of how borderline unfathomable things like this were at that point in time. Was a company like having a pay-per-view that did moderately well and was in front of like what looked on TV to be a sold like crowd and shit, and had like a competent main event like this. Elsewhere on the card, you had Samoa Joe defeating Abyss, Raven, and Spike Dudley in the Monsters Ball in a fucking incredible Chris Sabin low-key match. And as Oracle mentioned, Christian Cage and Rhino in an 8-mile street fight. This Plymouth, Michigan, it's like when they had fucking WrestleMania in Arlington and they're like, it's in Dallas. And I'm like, no, that's a 30-minute drive from here. LAX and AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, like they put their best foot forward on this, and it's very frustrating for the reasons you just said. They even have an Angle and Joe like confrontation on this, and the whole thing of the main event is that like Joe's banned from the building because they don't want him to fuck up the main event because he's gonna kill Kurt Angle if he sees him. So you get Sting, the big star in here. I remember watching this live with my friends, and we all like lost our shit when Sting did the power bomb. We were like, "What?" Like
that was awesome.
And at this point, we thought he was old, and so like that was fun. Just some takeaways. Someone had a sign that said when Angle came out, it was written in like the scratch WWE font. It said, "You screwed Vince." And then he turned around and said, "Now screw Sting." And the camera like cut away really quick when the guy turned his sign around. Joe called out the double cross body spot, which was kind of mind blowing, just because Sting, and then Bob got his tombstone reversal spot, even in this one. Yeah, the angle stuff really was like, the idea of it is good, but he was just clearly so like fucking just fired up that
Yeah.
And I don't want to imply that there may be chemicals that have done anything to do with that.
No, we wouldn't do that.
He was just so ready to go. And then in the end, after all this, like I said, there's it's not a perfect match, and it's not like crisp or whatnot, but like Jarrett is on fire in the first act of this. When he hits that drop kick and he gets up and starts hyping himself up, like, oh, Jeff Jarrett rules. But the ending is perfect. The whole idea of this was Sting was here to beat Jeff Jarrett finally, and Jarrett, the way he always wins, the guitar, he hits Sting, and it doesn't matter, and then Sting takes him down and beats him. Oracle and I have talked about, I'm not sure if we were talking about it on air, but I know he and I have talked about it off air or in person before, of like, when I watched this pay-per-view and it ended, I thought like I had just seen something that was like a catalyst, and like there's something very big happening right now, and something that's about to change. And I will take to my grave that it could have. It's just they were so incompetent, they immediately just fumbled it, and they were just like, all right, what's the biggest match we can do? Let's do it immediately. What's the worst finish we can do for that? Let's do that. And then it was just like, it's done. It's done. You had it. You lost it. You're done. But this match, this moment in time, it's a fun piece of business. And the most important part is the match doesn't overstay its welcome.
I agree completely. It's hard, like I see a lot of, I think because Impact is producing good content, even if not popular content more now. Like I think there's a growing sentiment of, don't dwell on what TNA wasn't and appreciate what it was. And while in theory I co-sign that, I find that to be really hard because it's not just they fell short. With WCW, we always have fun about the misses, but we really celebrate the hits. It's like they didn't just fall short, man. They didn't really get moving. Like what you just said is this could have been the start of something. And when we come back in a year, like it doesn't feel any bigger at all. Like it's just they just didn't. Where it is a matter of vision, creative, whatever. I mean, it was all of the above, as we know. And I don't want to dwell on it because, again, it's not about TNA. But it's like you watch this, you just kind of go, it never really gets better. This is like the most promise they show, and there's just a bunch more false dawns ahead. And it's like, I'm not saying they didn't do good wrestling because they did. I'm not trying to understate their whole importance, and a lot of guys got paid on those letters, so God bless. But man, they didn't even get close to what they could have been.
And they did double houses of this, but it's just like it from a feeling of like this could be an industry changer. Yeah, this night was the peak of it.
Yeah, which it shouldn't have been, right, by any means. No. But nonetheless, it is worth noting that Jeff Jarrett and Sting shared the ring for a pay-per-view match last year, which is fucking insane. And it was fun too, but that was a hell of a match. So there you go. All right, we move forward a year. Bound for Glory 2007 for one of the most insane matches, or at least one of the most insane performances that I can't. There's some unfathomable stuff here, but anyway, Kurt Angle is the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He's defending against Sting. There is a great atmosphere for this, and they have this main event style opening, and they're trading holds. And I quickly realized, oh my god, what does Kurt intend to make Sting do here? Because it appeared no one ever took it seriously when TNA was like, this is actually our WrestleMania. Kurt Angle did.
Yeah.
He was like, this is it. This is the biggest match of my life. I'm here at the WrestleMania of TNA. He's feeding Sting with a velocity off that match. He was out of control here, man. Sting couldn't. I mean, thank goodness Sting was in great shape. Sting was in great shape because this could have been a disaster. He was going at 100 miles an hour. It was incredible.
Yeah, like I've seen this match before, but as we'll get to, just there's some infamy to the closing act of this match. When it started, I was like, man, Sting can still go. And then like 10 seconds later, I was like, oh, Kurt's not giving him an option. Like he's just making him go.
It was insane. Bobby, had you seen this before again? And what did you make of this? This was something else.
Yeah, this one I had seen before. Kurt is insane in this match. He does a 450 splash, which just doesn't work, and he just works with it anyway. Just, and I know, like, he's talked about how that's not a great time in his life or whatever, but Kurt and TNA at this time, man, is just unlike anything that you've seen. If you've seen Kurt Angle in WWE, and that's it, like, just out of control, but in the best possible way from an in-ring standpoint.
Yes.
The pace he's pushing is crazy.
Yeah.
It's like he does a German suplex where it appears Sting just has no say in the matter. He just goes flying, lands on his head. It's like,
Yep.
It's one of those Vader Japan Germans where he just
Yeah.
like hoofs them and
Mhm.
shit, like, you know.
It's something. Oracle, what did you make of this?
This was a good match. First of
Yeah.
all, it was legitimately good.
For sure.
Credit to Sting for hanging in there with
His
Kurt.
life was on the line,
He
brother.
gets German on his head, and Kurt's over here. He's like, "Now don't be like Eddie Guerrero and sell.
Yeah.
We got to get up and go through our shit here." He goes, he's like, "You're just doing all kinds of crazy shit." Sting takes the fucking top rope super, angle, gets up and does his running suplex at the top that Sting takes. Some of this, the insanity here is just the wobbly 450. Kurt rushes the 450 and like he loses his balance, he has to stand sideways at an angle, so he just still goes for it. And ends up hitting a knee, 450 knees to Sting's ribs. And they map out a pretty good finishing stretch here. Sting countering the ankle lock into the fucking Scorpion Deathlock rolled.
Beautiful.
Kicked ass the way that they did that. That was fucking awesome. Of course, the ref bumps and shit were totally absurd because it's TNA and typical. The finish is psychotic.
Insane.
Kurt gets a bat and swings, and Sting just stands there and takes it in his fucking head and his temple. Like, right over here. And he catches it after. It's like he gets hit in the head and it sort of lands. He reacts way too slow. And so he hits everybody with a bat, he gets a death drop and wins or whatever. And the post match is amazing because Sting is like gushing blood and shit, and like the ref, I think it's Andrew Thomas or whatever, keeps checking on him. And Sting's like, "No, get away from you! I'm trying to celebrate." Like Sting is like literally like probably gonna have some hematoma forming on his head as he's gushing blood, and of course Angle's got blood. Is that Kurt's blood?
I have
Or is that Sting's blood?
I have no. There's a lot of blood at the end of the match. And I have no idea how or why or what was going on.
But, just an insane match. Very fun, good match. Kurt drives me insane because he's clearly great, but like he refuses
has no
to
control.
sell the way that I enjoy selling and wrestling. So it does drive me insane sometimes. But this did not overstay its welcome, so it was fine. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just totally batshit stuff. That 450, that wobbly 450 was incredible.
And all of this insanity that you've mentioned, you haven't even brought up the fact that TNA was
Casual Nash came out.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, TNA was the promotion who would have a matchup like Kurt Angle and fucking Sting and be like, "Need some Nash in here, man. I've got to." Like, what? Why does it? Not only is he in this, he takes like 4 bumps.
He does.
For what? For who?
We also have the just Russo-rific. Sting has a restraining order against Karen Angle, but she does like a run-in. Which, I mean, to be fair, one of my notes is "Hello, Karen Angle." My God.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like they do like a swerve with it, right? And then it distracts the referee, and then the whole deal. Alex, what did you think of this?
Like I said, I had seen this before, but I'm not proud to say. Talk about nerds earlier. I'm not proud to say I've seen so many wrestling matches that some are just pushed out of my mind. When this started, I was like, "What the fuck?" Like I know I had seen it, and I had like the whole closing sequence, like Memorex, but it is like just what you said. Angle really like. I'm the main event of the biggest show of the year, so I need to go out there and like make sure that I do whatever the fuck I can. And he's doing that chain wrestling, and then he just starts throwing Sting around. When he did his run up the ropes and like hoof gimmick, I was just praying for Steve Borden at that point, man. his life was in the Lord's hands. But Devin called it out, but those submission counters are awesome. And it makes it special because that's the type of shit you've never seen Sting do before. And Kurt Angle, like, all jokes about intensity and mental state aside, like, one thing he was always incredible at as a wrestler was being able to create moments and matches with guys that they never had with anybody else. True. Even if it's something as simple as like a counter to a move, like Kurt could always figure out something that can make a match stick out and pop. And this is awesome until like the finish. Until my note says good until Russo, because basically when the run-ins start, it's just like, what's the point of this? You know, the next year when Sting wrestled Samoa Joe, Kevin Nash was involved in the finish of that match too. Yeah. And he probably said, yeah, it's just like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know? That's what we're doing. But I remember shortly after this happened, I was still in college. I remember me and my buddy Julian getting just like annihilated high and watching Sting take the baseball bat to the face like 30 times, like on a loop. Because like we could not stop laughing at. He puts his hands up and the bat just goes through his hands and hits him in the head. But while it hits him and you can hear it go, and then he closes his hands and he acts like that's what I meant to have happen because he's like smiling as he's just like hard way bleeding all over his face and takes the bat away from Kurt Angle. And yeah, the 450 is just like, why not? But the bat is to me always like the peak of it. And you know, they were in Atlanta, so that crowd, I mean, give them props. I think that the floor section was standing the entire match. Yeah. So like people, they were into it and they wanted to see Sting win, and he did. But it's a tale of two matches in the sense that finish was really dumb and like the shit that killed TNA. But the first stanza is like, yeah, that's what sets your company apart. You got Kurt Angle going crazy and throwing Sting around the ring. Like, this is awesome. So fascinating piece of business.
It did pop me when Mike Tenay said Kurt Angle was surprised by the reaction as he won Olympic gold in this very city. I was like, the idea that had relevance at Bound for Glory crowd in 2007. Like,
and then Don West is like, yeah, but that was like 10 years ago.
Don West said they're only thinking about the last few weeks, which is like an encapsulation of TNA booking there completely.
Vince McMahon was watching at home and he said, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you said it. Kevin Nash is involved in the next year's finish too, and he's more involved in next year's finish. He is the actual finish next year.
Yeah, and like I said, I love Kevin Nash, but like,
oh yeah, great, absolutely.
Jesus, man, I forgot how, and especially like he looks like fucking Jeff Bridges here with the long gray hair and stuff. It's like, come on, man.
It's just like it's Kurt and Sting. Like, you don't need, like, I love Kevin Nash, but he doesn't add anything here. Like, they don't need more star power in this situation. Anyway,
I just worry about his quads. Like
fair.
Like the lap.
Dude, that's
his quads.
Topical because we're talking about Sting. One of the all-time like great Nash moments is at the 31 match where the Outlaws come down. Yes. And Billy Gunn hits Nash, and Nash goes down holding his quad.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tremendous. Okay, other hits from the Act 3 here. I do think, you know, just based on the bump alone, the infamous crowd bump alone, the Joe match is worth exploring.
Yeah.
Some of those lethal lockdowns are fun. Yeah, the match is good. Some of those lethal lockdowns are fun. I think 06 and 07 are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I have no other call-outs from TNA. I don't know if you boys do.
The One Abyss match we talked about is fun till the finish. The Last Rites match is fun. The Prison Yard match is fun. Those are really the only three.
What kind of fun are you into, kid?
Well,
I'm playing. Any others, boys?
The Last Rites match, they have to get in the coffin to the ceiling.
This dude's a sicko, bro. He's fucking nuts.
He's fucking with us.
You need to take his license away.
I second the Lethal Lockdown 2007. I mean, look at this match. Like, I'm just going to read this match. Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, Rhino, Sting, and Jeff Jarrett versus Christian, AJ Styles, Scott Steiner, Abyss, and Tomko with Father James Mitchell. I mean, come on.
That's real graps. Yeah.
I can't even sarcastically, like, the Joker Sting is one of like the worst things I've ever seen in
so
wrestling.
bad.
It's just reprehensible.
Have you ever seen the clip where he claims that fans come up to him all the time and like ask him when he's going to bring back the Joker?
Yes.
Come on, bro. You're making up people now. Just imaginary fans telling him this. There's no way. There's no way anyone requested this. I refuse.
He had a couple showings in TNA, but for the most part, it was he knew what he needed to do. And like, man, you look at those shows in England they would do. He was a god. They would go over there and
Sure.
So, it is what it is, and he did have some fun outings there. I'm sure he had a good match with AJ at some point because everybody did. But
yeah, the Bound for Glory one's just solid, right? It's not particularly.
Yeah,
I actually think for like the first like 5 years there before like Joker Sting became a thing, he was actually one of the smarter workers in TNA. He never had anything to blow it, but he was always like, working smart.
I just think they got his usage all wrong, man. Like,
oh yeah,
why did he have to be on every show? They wanted him to be. I'm convinced that's Dixie wanted him to be to TNA what like Taker was to SmackDown in the late 2000s. When he was like kind of. But why pay Sting the big bucks if you're going to completely erode what he is as a draw? It's like because by the end of his time in TNA, he didn't mean anything to their bottom line, which is fucking insane. It's Sting, like
he because of that, because he was around so much. I remember it might have been for a Bound for Glory. They did a match where Christopher Daniels, being guided by a higher power, was out to take out Sting, and it should have felt like a much bigger deal. And they had like an okay match, but like it was just like Sting wrestled Christian last month. So like,
was it Slammiversary?
Slammiversary, that's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course the whole thing would have worked if Daniels won, but we're not doing that, brother. So
yeah.
I do remember his first TV match in TNA on what are they? It was called Impact, their weekly show.
Mm-hmm.
He wrestled Eric Young, and it was a lot of fun. It was the whole thing was like, I think Eric Young was still in Team Canada, and he was scared of Sting, and they were all like working him into, you're going to be all right. You're going to go out there and wrestle Sting. And it was a thing he got in the ring and then immediately like would powder. And he finally did like lock up Sting, beat him and whatnot. But are we talking about from the end of this to today, our recommendation?
We'll do that separately. Just quickly to derail the show one more time. Bob, where is Eric Young? Didn't he re-sign like 10 years ago or something? Where is he?
Yeah, because he got like killed off TNA or whatever, I think is how it ended.
Literally killed off, dead, yes.
Yeah, I thought he was going back to WWE and he has not showed up yet. Maybe he's in their post-Mania plans.
What plans they must be. All right, there you go.
He's gonna be the muscle for Jay White.
Well, hold on. I've heard worse like this. Let's not shoot it down.
Hold on. World Elite's gonna reform with Jay White.
Homicide's gonna get a spot.
You got fucking Eric Young's the guy who talks like this, right? He has like the real Jay White. Oi, I'm from Australia.
Okay, disrespectful on multiple levels.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. New Zealand, because I know that they take that seriously.
What would be Homicide's WWE name?
Chris Benoit. You walked right into that, man.
I know.
No, that's Sabu.
Okay, fair. All right, we'll leave that there.
Chris Benoit's ECW name is, I forgot he was, and he said, never mind. Yeah.
I had a feeling Alex would go in a particular direction, and he did not disappoint. So we will.
I fumbled that. Let's
okay.
Move on.
WWE. I don't want to dwell on this.
No, sorry. We got to stop. We got to figure out what Homicide's name would be. Because, like,
are you sure?
Okay. Jokes aside, Invader 1. I got it out of the way. So, what? But has he ever wrestled as anything else? Because he's been around since Moses was wrestling, right?
Yeah, I mean, he debuted at like 15. He's always been Homicide, I think.
Yeah, they would have to figure something out because obviously, Paul's not going to run with that. He'd be a trainer or something, and they would come up with like some like endearing name for him, like they call Matt Bloom coach, so they'd figure out something to call him.
Fair. All right, well, we'll cross that bridge on the homicide grin. That would actually be a hoot. Homicide Grin Grappler. Maybe one to get to in 5 years or so.
It'd be 6 Steve Carino matches.
Fair, and there'd be a blast.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
Carino episode would be fun. Nonetheless, WWE, great debut in a great match. Then has to wrestle Triple H. Thoughts and prayers. For some reason, he just represents the Monday Night Wars. WCW has to lose because famously Sting was an ally of the NWO, so that all made sense and wasn't bad at all. I do want to shout out one genuinely fun deal. When they do the thing where him and Cena team up against Show and Seth, that is actually pretty cool. That's a cool visual, because he does it. Remember they switch it. He wrestles Show and it's like a minute long, and they shoot an angle and Cena makes the save and they do a tag. That's fun just for the novelty of it, like Sting and John Cena. It's pretty cool. So,
okay,
anything else from the WWE stuff? Go on.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I cannot sit here and act like watching that match live wasn't a hoot. Like, it made no sense. It was stupid. Come
on. It was terrible, man. What they doing to that guy? He's out there. They're talking about him being a loser and shit. It was despicable.
All right. Okay, so it could be. It not could be. It is. I watched that in a room full of friends, and we had a party for WrestleMania, and I've never rewatched that match again. So we were just like, oh, yeah, Shawn Michaels.
It's fun. No, I get it. It's a fun spectacle. Genuinely.
The theme they gave him was so stupid, and then like the whole idea was like, Grin Grappler people that Triple H had to lose to would be our first 7-hour episode. But or I'm sorry, people that had to lose to Triple H. You guys know what I mean? But they telegraphed his debut too much. And do you remember when he showed back up to challenge Seth, where it was supposed to be the unveiling of the Seth statue?
And he's paint run.
Well, that part aside, can you imagine like if they had figured out a way to debut him like that, where it wasn't like some big entrance or something that he just appeared? How fucking awesome that would be.
Yeah.
But I just because I remember 31 was such a fun show to watch live, and what I have rewatched of it, the only thing that holds up is the main event, and to be fair, it's the best WrestleMania main event ever, but is what it is. But the angle was like he came back to avenge WCW, right?
Well, it was weird. I'm glad Bobby was there for it, so I don't want to like dampen that memory, but I've always thought it was like really fucking. Like they had, that's like a big moment in the promotion. Like WWE is in this power struggle, and Dolph has that big fucking performance, and in the end, it's a classic modern WWE moment, or 2010s WWE moment, I'll say, where it's like the energy is very much okay. The kids have had their fun, now the real stars are here. Like Dolph has this crazy performance, and it's like it's about Sting. Like, why is it about Sting? Like what? And that's one gripe I have with him. But yeah, the idea was he wasn't going to let him like corrupt. I don't fucking know, man. It's whoever asked for Sting and Triple H. Seriously, it's horseshit.
I forgot about that JBL commentary line that I don't have an app mentions. The war is over.
JBL. I actually like JBL as a commentator at times. He's so bad on that match. Like infuriating. Considering that Triple H is going to win anyway, what was the need? But
there was a clip from his debut, and again, not to sully it for our friend Bob, but that me and my friends isolated because it was so funny. There's like a 5 or 6 second clip of Sting walking to the back while I'm here to show the world plays. It's one of those things, like if you watch that out of context, it makes absolutely no sense.
And again, like I get why in history that doesn't matter because like Dolph was not going to be doing anything important anyway. But that's kind of the point. It's like if you watch just the shows, it's like, my God, this guy's having a really big moment. It's like, oh no, it's about Sting setting up a match with Triple H. Don't mind. It's like that is WWE defined in 2010.
It's about
exactly what they were.
Sting had a problem before Mania 31 and said, "I'm not here over a 14-year-old." I forgot about that. And then it was
Yeah.
anyways. Cue lapsed Vince bringing Sting into his office and telling him how it's going to go.
It's
Yeah.
it's not about Dolph Ziggler. It's about Sting showing up to lose to Triple H at WrestleMania on
Right.
the third match of the show.
I think it was Razor, right, who told the story about when they said the finish, everyone was like, "Fuck." You said that?
He talked to it was him or Nash was like, Hogan would already had this in the bag. All right. So now I'll probably get to my controversial stance. The Seth match is good.
Oh, he's good. No, he's good. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was worried I was gonna have to fight.
He almost died, but it's bloody good. It's a good time. He's good in it's really going along well, and then obviously shit happens. But and obviously that kept him out of the ring for a while, a long time. It's almost 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those difficult things to revisit of because the common the belief was at the time Seth Rollins was the king bee, the queen bee, excuse me, the king of the castle, and because he did have such good output then. The problem is we figured out that's all he could do.
I think so.
Yeah.
But that's why I'll go back to defend this match with Sting, is because obviously he was working with someone who had a bit of different abilities than him. Because you remember that was he wrestled Cena right before that, and him and Cena went 20 minutes or whatever, and him and Cena just had their usual Cena's great, but Sting came out and it had to be a little bit different, and so they used things to work around it. And I remember everyone at the time was like, "Oh, this is Sting's best match in forever," despite the fact that he almost died. Just it was fun. I remember being there for that, and it was fun. I never at any point thought he was going to win. I remember a lot of people in that building thought Sting was going to win the WWE title.
My
I was
God.
like, okay. And then I don't know if y'all remember the way the show ended is Sting's dying and getting carted off, and then Kane comes out and attacks Seth, and then Sheamus comes out to cash in Money in the Bank, and then Kane tombstones Sheamus. And so I'm not watching the pay-per-view broadcast. I'm seeing Sting getting stretchered out while Sheamus is hoofing it down to the ring. It was a very strange visual to watch unfold. 2015 WWF was not a good time for anybody.
Awful.
Yeah.
It's actually I know everyone online overstates the 2016 brand split, myself included. The reason we do that is because we remember 2015, right?
Yeah.
2016 was a different world compared to what you had in 20. That was rough, man, really rough. So, interesting memories. Then, of course, Return on Winter is Coming 2020. Initially, he was going to do cinematic matches, it seemed. Took a power bomb on Dynamite. Seemingly got the feel for it. That cinematic match was pretty fun. I know, Oracle, you liked it more than I did, bro. You had a really good time with that one with Ricky and Cage, right?
I was happy for Ricky to be in something like that.
Really cool. And Tony Khan has missed on certain things, but if there's one thing he's objectively hit on, he's nailed the Sting thing, man. He's maximized what Sting is in a way that has kind of reminded you of how powerful Sting's star power can still be and should have been for the last God knows how long. He's a special attraction, but he's around enough that he doesn't feel like he's above the roster. He feels like one of the guys in a good way, it's like a middle ground between what TNA did and the alternative. So they did a really good job. I don't know what you'd say his best match has been in AEW. I love the match he had with the first tag he did was the one when he actually had the singlet, right? When he wrestled Ethan and Scorpio.
Oh, yeah.
That was fucking awesome, man. That was a great time. The FTR match at Arthur Ashe that he was ashamed of was a 4-star match.
That match ruled.
That was great.
Was awesome. I don't know if you've heard that story, Alex, but he walked through the curtain.
Greensboro is awesome.
That's good too.
Yeah, absolutely. The Arthur Ashe match, he walked through. He was going to retire when he walked through the curtain because he thought he was so bad in that match. He hated his performance, and all the boys were like, "Oh my god, you went back in time. You're incredible." He felt like he was letting the match down. And when you watch it, it's unfathomable because he's awesome in that match. Relative to what he can do, but he's a hoot in that one.
I think that's the only time I've watched the full Dynamite and full Rampage or something, because that was a big show. I remember maybe sacrilege to some people listening. To me, that was the best match of that whole event. I was when Sting had one of them in the Scorpion, and the other one was trying to get in the ring, and Darby did the coffin drop on the apron. I stood up like off my couch, was like, "Holy shit, that's awesome!"
Yeah, and Oracle kind of mentioned the sort of unofficial sequel is when Punk does the paint and they do the trios, and that is an incredible and more great FTR Sting content there. The Forbidden Door match, which you were there for, some love in the chat. He's incredible in that. That's a great time. Yeah, man.
So like, what it seems to me has happened in AEW is that all the memories, like singles matches aside, because obviously he's like
yeah.
But like when people like me and others talk about like his TNA shit, like the moments we think of like, oh, then he jumped off the cage, or then he did the dive onto the guy, like the group of people, and he did this big spot and all that. It seems like what Tony Khan's been smart enough to do is consolidate that to that it's his appearances versus like he does that and then we have him the next show wrestle a 20-minute match.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The some of the pay-per-view matches he's been involved in, he has done like some ridiculous stuff, and his strengths are highlighted and his weaknesses are hidden. Darby is obviously an ideal partner because Darby could take all the bumps. Sting is crazy and will do those balcony dives and will do those high spots because he's Sting, but he doesn't have to, which is the point. They've nailed it. I mean, Bob, you've talked about like he's been a highlight, I know, for you in AEW, right?
Yeah. Well, it's been really smart too to only have him be in tag matches, not really overextend what he can do. A parallel is actually The Undertaker, because the tag match that he did is the best match that he's had in the past however many years, the one with Roman against Drew and Shane. And if they would have done more of that, I think we would remember the last few years of him a little more fondly too, like we're doing with Sting.
Yeah, and you just kind of hinted at it there, Alex. Like Sting has said he's not wrestling another singles match. Like he knows his limitations, relatively speaking, and he wants to close his thing out in style. This is his last year. Oracle, I know you've enjoyed. I remember one time we were previewing a pay-per-view and Oracle said, I think Sting's going to do a balcony dive. And I was like, well, hold on. And he fucking did one. Do you remember that, Oracle? I can't remember what show that was, but yeah, it's fun.
Was it Double or Nothing or was it Revolution?
So. Was Natural Born Killers playing over the PA?
Not only in the minds and souls of the wrestling fan,
Oh my God! Speaking of that, I just thought of that CyberSlam '97. I just watched that recently. New Jack decides to do a balcony dive in the crow's nest, and like Devon Dudley's on a table from 40 yards away, and he like barely hits him with a flying headbutt, and he meant to splash. Totally psychotic.
So someone I was like literally they read my mind. I was about to ask a question.
Which one?
So that would have been 2016.
16, right. Yeah.
Could those two have still had a good match at that point?
Probably not. No, to be honest. When it should have happened was when. Do you remember when they did those vignettes that everyone thought was Sting and it was actually Undertaker?
2011. Yeah.
That's when it actually should happen, right? Like honestly, like.
Well, when it should have happened.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but Vince is such a God. That shit will never like. Meltzer said he talked to Vince and he's like, you got to bring in Goldberg. And he's like, well, if I do, I have to pay him more. And he's like, you're going to make it back. Trust me. And Vince is like, nope, I won't do it. Same thing with Sting. It's like, of course those guys aren't going to come work for you. They're not fucking marks like Diamond Dallas Page. They're going to take pennies on the dollar. And so, yeah. Well, no, honestly, that wouldn't have been as cool if it was Crow Sting against fucking Biker
That's the only
Taker.
thing.
Yeah.
That you call yourself Sting. Now I'm cool with that.
The 2011 thing was interesting because that was when they did the angle where both of the guys who were opposing Hogan in TNA were leaving or their deals were up, and so everyone thought Sting was actually going to leave. And I guess the reason I feel that's a good point to mark in the timeline is like, what would we have lost if Sting left in TNA then rather than when he did leave? Like, I feel like we missed nothing, right?
Dude, could you imagine, too, because that WrestleMania was in Atlanta. Can you imagine? Like,
I would have been there live for that, too. That would have fucking
Man, it's at any point, I've talked about this before. I may have even told y'all some in conversation. Like, it still would have been cool because they would have done the spot where Sting went for the Stinger Splash and Taker caught him in the choke slam, or they did the spot where Taker went for the tombstone and then Sting reversed it in the Scorpion Death Drop.
Yep.
But yeah, at that point in the game, it's like, man, by 2016, I don't know what they could have really done, because that's the whole point of that. A year before, all Sting could do is like all smoke and mirrors, and I'm not even talking about Cody Rhodes. It's just like, constant run-ins.
What about the spot where Sting counters Hell's Gate into, or rather, Taker counters the Scorpion Deathlock into Hell's Gate?
They would have had Angle like agenting the match to show him how to properly do it.
I guess my actual question, the more that we've talked about this, is like, not even a question. It's just a conclusion I've reached here at the 2 hour and 27-minute mark. It's like, I really don't. I can honestly say that as a fan of Sting, there is not like one part of me that's like, man, I wish we got that Taker match, Like, and I'm not doing the Bob bit where I say Undertaker's bad, because he wasn't bad.
No.
What I'm saying is, like, I just don't know if that's a match that was necessary. Like, I don't know what the best version of that match is. Does that make sense? It's like, I'm sure it would have been cool, but stylistically, it's kind of a weird, because I think the best versions of it don't line up with each other,
It would have been one of those really fucking weird, like, nerd things about Taker too. Of like, I don't trust him. He would have done some weird shit where So I know we're going. This is reaching Bret Hart territories with this length here. But I agree. I don't know at any point in time if that match would have been anything beyond just like, oh, that was a thing that happened. One thing I've always wondered, though, and I'm curious on y'all's, was there ever a point in time where it would have been fun for Surfer Sting to come back, or do you think once he turned, it should have been done forever? And obviously now, due to Father Time and the way hair works and stuff, it's not going to happen. But like, was there ever a point in time you think that would have been cool, or it just kind of it was done?
I think it was done because Sting was smart enough to find a happy medium where he could actually kind of project and portray the strengths of Surfer Sting through his new look. I think if he was really stubborn about who the Crow was, he could have killed his career with that. But really, to me anyway, for much of the last 20 years, he's been Surfer Sting just in the new paint. I think that's allowed us to kind of have this middle ground that you see in that DDP match. So I think he was that way in TNA, definitely. I mean, Alex, you'll be aware, like, he was cutting promos and stuff in a very different manner than what we got as the Crow, where he was a mute almost, right? So, I think Surfer Sting is my favorite Sting, but I think once he had that look, there was no turning back, because that's the most iconic Sting look, right? Ultimately, as much as we enjoy the colors and such of the early 90s. So I think he found a very happy medium that allowed him to survive, kind of keeping the Crow look, but embodying a lot of the Surfer Sting vibe. Yeah,
and you also, like, you can't go back to that, like, when, because people are going to expect you to be just like jacked and chiseled and shit, and so I just some people say like he should have busted it out for like a big Mania style entrance. It's like that's not how it works, brother.
No, and I also I don't want to do the in the bubble thing, but I do think that is like, while his Sting was a massive deal in that under that look, it's like, the Crow thing was, we just talked about earlier, it was one of the biggest matches in history at the time. That was a transformative deal. That look that's who Sting is now to most fans, which is fine. Okay. Final thoughts on the Stinger, and then we'll wrap up by picking our next wrestler. Bobby, final thoughts on Sting, mate?
I think just kind of a one-of-a-kind performer based on all the stuff we said, success in 4 companies now. Well, I mean, if you want to call the WWE run success, well, he did wrestle for the title or whatever, but still, either way. Just, longevity. I know he said he's going to retire this year, but just what a career, man. Like, and a guy that everyone really seems to like. And it's nice. I'm always glad when he shows up. I'm excited for his match tomorrow. I've liked probably 90% of his AEW matches so far. He still got it.
Yep, he's a hoot for sure. I'm looking forward to it also. Oracle, any final thoughts, mate?
Yeah. Man, there's nothing like, like 90 to 94 Sting. That dude's something else. And of course, Crow Sting, we've talked about that and that transformation and how amazing it was, but he's just I don't know. He's at his best, at least even from an in-ring standpoint, he's actually quite a remarkable worker.
I agree.
And to get nerdy here, he's definitely somebody that I could see like making it into like my bottom 10 for like a top 100 all time. Like I don't know. He's when you're still having like competent and even more so than that, more than competent performances in your 60s and doing balcony dives and shit, and it doesn't feel like silly or out of place or whatever, or like, I don't know. That's really impressive, and I know he like look Joker Sting sucked or whatever, and there's a lot of things that hurt him, but this run the last couple of years has really helped him, and yeah, he's a one of a kind, type wrestler, and there's I don't know. He's one of these guys that it's amazing that he's still around.
Yeah.
And when we lose him, it's just going to be another piece of that sort of wrestling magic that'll be gone. But yeah, Sting
I agree.
rules.
Absolutely. Alex, what about you, mate?
Yeah, man. I mean, we talked about it along the way. It's Sting. It's
yeah.
It'd be hard pressed to say he's like one of the all time greats, bell to bell. I wouldn't necessarily put him like in that Brett class or something like that. But at the same time, he's a huge star. He's made a huge impact. He's had a long ass career. Everybody knows who Sting is, and easily the good outweighs the bad. Like if you're like, if you're if you want to make your jokes at like indie shows and be like oh yeah, like just talking about the shit he was involved in, like the dogs Rick Steiner had attack him, or the Jake Roberts thing that we talked about earlier. There's a lot of stuff you can joke about with Sting and make kind of like make references that really like hardcore fans will get and that type of stuff. But that doesn't matter. He's Sting. It doesn't matter that his one WrestleMania match they lost to Triple H. Like his one WWE title match, he lost to fucking Seth Crockins, but like it's he's Sting, and he's someone that people will always know. And I think for kind of the guff he sometimes gets for not taking it seriously or whatnot, I think we've definitely covered in the matches we've done here that like when he showed up, he showed up.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think he's on a short list. Like, I'm a firm believer in, often online we see these conversations about this guy's better as a heel and so on and so forth. I think most great wrestlers prefer being heels because it's more fun. Sting is on that very short list of guys who is just a babyface. It's like him, Steamboat, Ray. Like, there ain't many of them, man. Like, even the biggest babyface stars in the history of the industry were great heels, but they just were too big of stars to be that way. Sting's on that short list. I think he's on the Mount Rushmore of great babyface in US wrestling history anyway. He's probably my favorite, like that prototype of the kind of raw babyface top guy. I think he's like the guy who did it with an authenticity that made him so damn likable in a way where some guys can be so phony with that presentation. It's like he never felt that way. He always had a raw energy and enthusiasm. And I think that really was a defining factor in, a defining spirit of WCW. Without getting too sentimental, I think Oracle really did touch on a nice, like, it's nice, but it's also sad, right? It does feel like in a lot of ways, well, you don't dwell on it because you drove yourself nuts. It's like he symbolizes a lot of stuff that's like just fading away slowly. It will be this year. Hopefully they do it right. I think they will. I think Tony's obviously a pretty big fan, but like it seems like at some point this year he's going to have a retirement match on either TBS or TNT, which is like insane in itself. But I don't know if Sting's a guy who's necessarily going to be sticking around in roles beyond that. And it's kind of, it's just, I think, I'm not breaking any news here, but it is worth appreciating the fact that we've got this last little run here because it looked like it was done, right? I mean, when he went in the Hall of Fame, I know you said since they kind of forced him to retire because you have, to them, they had that stretch where it's like you have to retire to be in the Hall of Fame, which is, so he always thought there was a chance, but as fans, we all thought he was done, right? So it's cool. We've got to see him interact with some new people. He is a wrestling icon, man. The icon was a fitting moniker for him, and I think everyone has different memories. Everyone has different favorite looks, and a truly unique legacy in the history of the industry. Which we've done a lot of these at this point, and I don't think there's many people you can say that for. Really, Sting's one of them. Very, very special piece of pro wrestling history. So, yeah, he's the man. He's Sting. All right, as we've all said it many times. He's Sting. What do you want? All right, there you go, folks.
Sting. Oh, I didn't do this one time, so I have to do the flair. Sting. 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 Sting.
Absolutely. All right. We return now to, last time this was our first time picking wrestlers. We actually put on a poll, but Bob put the halt on that by saying the fans were dumb, which I don't agree with. But he's a WWE fan, so it is what it is.
Hi, Bosh.
Indeed. Okay. Our wrestlers for April. Here's our options, boys. We have someone who's very relevant after the show we did today, Diamond Dallas Page. He's a candidate. We have Randy Orton. We have Rowdy Roddy Piper. And we have Big Match John Cena. Some heavy hitters. I do fear that if we do DDP, we may all get like emails from Dallas. I feel like we may have gone too far in our endorsement of him. But man, there's some options there. There really is some options there. Chat Sam Roddy, I'm a polite gentleman, and I did not put Roddy on the list of candidates. But now that he's come up, he's on the board, I guess. I'm just throwing it out there. But yeah, what are we thinking, Bobby? Which way do you lean immediately?
DDP would be interesting, but I think we might have covered a fair amount of his matches already with other guys. Orton and Cena aren't necessarily as intriguing to me personally because I've seen all their stuff pretty much because, they came in when I started watching. So by default, probably Piper.
By default.
Just process of elimination. But, I'm not really tied to any answer here.
Okay, fair enough. Oracle, what are you thinking?
I think Cena and Piper are the two most interesting ones here.
What would be our X for Piper?
Portland, Rock and Wrestling, and then WCW.
Oh, we can't do that last act, bro. We can't.
Okay, then
we'd have to like babyface WWF, like when he comes back from the movie.
Yeah.
Hold on.
That would be kind of awesome, actually.
Well, my main thing was I was trying to avoid having to dip our toes into like his 2003 comeback.
Yeah, we'll definitely. I'll make sure of that. Don't worry.
Let me throw out two matches that are worth throwing out for the WCW run that we can throw in his last thing. Okay. Slamboree main event '97.
Fair.
Although the match's not about it, or the Flair match where they just cheat and poke each other's eyes at Bash the Beast '97, which is the same show we did with the Rodman tag, but that's just telling something.
I actually think babyface WWF should be an act because I actually think that's his best work. He has the match with Flair at the Garden, and he also has the match with Brett, obviously, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
we could do that. We could do like pre-WWF.
There's some tag matches during that era too, where it's like him and Hogan against Flair and I don't know, Nails or somebody.
We would probably do the Valentine match, right?
Yeah, I think that would be the kind of main match for Act 1.
And then maybe one of the matches from Portland. I'd have to look at my Portland stuff, but we could find one.
Okay, so we're gonna are we on Roddy? Alex, what are you thinking?
Yeah, if we were like the thing with Cena is if we were gonna do Cena, like my thing, it would have to be all B-sides because like every big John Cena match has been covered in enough. So if Cena was someone we covered, like I said, it would like. Yeah, like for like Brock Lesnar at Backlash 03, like that type of shit, things that people don't really talk about. Yeah. But Piper, I think there's more intrigue to cover different eras of the business and that type of thing.
Yeah,
we got to. I know I'm talking about. We got to that cage match where he does it all the time, where he just blades blatantly in camera. The MSV or maybe it's Boston Garden. Was it Savage? Is he in Savage or Bruno and somebody?
Yeah, was it Piper and Bruno at Boston Garden?
I'm not sure.
Bruno.
Like that, yeah.
It's a Bruno.
Yeah, I had my fun earlier with the Rod Strong bit, but I actually think Piper's the most interesting one by far. I mean, I definitely could create some content with the Alton one, but DDP we've talked about a lot, and as Bobby said, we've covered his best matches really. Alton and Cena are so like, as you said, they're so covered. Piper is the one I'm most interested by, certainly.
Yeah.
So
Piper, I'm good with.
okay,
Yeah.
Roddy Piper, folks, that'll be up next. It's been a hell of a time, boys. Maybe our longest Grin Grappler yet, but this is what we do around here. All right, let's wrap up with some plugs, some promotions, some so on and so forth. Bobby Two Shoes. Any final words? Anything to promote?
No, this was a blast as usual. Late Night Grin Thursday evening. WrestleMania 19 Grin Along speaking Roddy Piper Saturday evening.
That's gonna
And
be
then,
a
yeah,
hoot,
a
bro.
whole bunch of
Watching
Mania
that.
Week content.
Listen, they're both pieces of shit. I'm warning everyone now. If you come to that Grin Along and expect me to do anything but to fucking yell and scream during Hogan and Vince, you're out of your mind.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It is what it is, right?
You
It
just-
is what it is.
Maybe the
You
best
best for that part or
production
whatever.
Mania of all time too.
Yeah.
The production on that Mania is
A grin along for WrestleMania 19, outstanding.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Bobby. Oracle, any final words you can promote?
Mania week. You ready?
Here we
The
go.
aforementioned Grin Along on Saturday night. We have got Sunday, March 26th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Bobby and myself, along with special guest Joe, to preview WrestleMania. Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Deciding the Decade WrestleMania Edition.
Factual.
Wednesday night, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess, is it during Dynamite or following?
After Dynamite.
Right after Dynamite,
Your
game night.
post Dynamite party, folks.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have 2 words regarding Grin Night. 2 words.
Suck it.
Family feud. Family
okay.
feud.
Is that what's going on Wednesday?
That's why here. That's the word on.
Man.
That's the
Okay.
sources saying. That's what Dave told me.
Nothing Thursday, right?
Yeah, nothing. I may do that Impact show. I don't know yet. I may do a watch long, but nothing.
Friday night of Mania Week, the 31st is
The Grin.
the Grin Grappler, the flagship, old
Grin.
school.
Yes. Not the Grin Grappler, but the Grin. Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Late Night Grin. I'm all. You know, I always fuck up this promotion.
I ain't watching 6 Roddy Piper matches the next week, bro. I need a month.
Yeah, the Late Night Grin, the flagship, at 11:05 Eastern time, roughly on Friday night of Mania weekend, and then of course Saturday night and Sunday night, immediate WrestleMania post-show reviews.
Tremendous. Fired up, bro. Fired up. Exciting times ahead. Speaking of exciting, Alex, what's happening in the world of the Contrarians? What's going on as of late?
Oh, what is going on? We got Waitress, the 2007 Kerry Russell vehicle on the way, and then is it Dark Crimes, Deadly Crimes? There's some god-awful Jim Carrey movie from a few years ago that we're going to be talking about. A staggering 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes coming up. And yeah, for our patrons, we have an upcoming arc on the career and life of one Lindsay Lohan. And, you know, not like in a funny way. We're not just kind of talking about like the promise she showed, some of her early career, and like some of the movies she's done recently, and what a lot of people think she's working a comeback for, which she's doing some holiday-based movies on Netflix. So we got all kinds of things going on. Recently talked about the Mutations from 1974 with the great Donald Pleasance. But that's all at wearethecontrarians.com. You can find us, Dark Crimes. Thank you, Meech. On Instagram at Contrarian Prime, YouTube at Contrarian Prime, Twitter at Contrarian Prime, Facebook.com/Contrarian Prime. Always a pleasure to be here, fellas. Thank you so much also for letting me plug my stuff, and I can't wait to be back here next month and trying to I'll start working. I'll start working on my Roddy Piper impression. But yeah, I'll be in Los Angeles next weekend for WrestleMania. So anyone listening to this, hit me up. My Twitter's right there. I'll be at the WrestleCon Super Show and WrestleMania Night 2 and everything in between. Go to a Dodgers game. fired up about it.
Tremendous.
Nice.
Tremendous
Hold
stuff.
on, San Francisco.
Is it
Watch
fair to
my
say,
pistol.
Alex, just to be clear, because that was very polite, you invited people to come, greet you and such and sign 8x10s, but if Roman wins, is it fair to say people should stay clear, should avoid you? It feels like correct.
Yeah, I'm deleting all social media. Like
Hmm.
if this doesn't pay off, it's over. The dream is over. I'm walking home.
There you go, folks. You hit it here first. There you go. All right.
Hard times breed better men. I'm telling you.
Indeed. And on that note, we wrap up Grin Grappler thing. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Many of you have you been here for the whole 2 hours and 47 minutes of this program, an episode of Raw almost. So have a wonderful evening. We'll see you tomorrow or at some point this week. I'm sure Bobby ran it down earlier. I don't know. Who gives a fuck? All right. Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy this outro.